Chapter 1001, Luodu. A Gu family estate stood amidst the dense mountains, the setting sun bathing the woods in a crimson glow. Although the area seemed deserted and wild, the thick forest hid various glowing surveillance cameras, revealing the tight security. A lush, beautiful figure suddenly appeared at the entrance, revealing a tender and charming face that could easily enchant anyone, especially those expressive, watery eyes. She held a high status here, as even Gu Junqing would have to call her mother. Did this brat reincarnate as the god of marriage just to tie his own red strings? He even reeled in Liu Qingyi, and as if that wasn't enough, he dared to announce it publicly. He really isn't afraid of his harem setting itself on fire. Xie Ying thought to herself with a shrug while walking down the path. Having seen the half-profile image circulating online, she recognized it as Gu Junqing at a glance. She was well aware of who Liu Qingyi was, the imperial songstress and legendary pop diva. She usually enjoyed listening to her songs as well. She had even considered inviting her to her birthday banquet once, but she had abandoned the idea upon hearing that Liu Qingyi never accepted private invitations. Who would have thought that her son, Gu Junqing, would manage to charm her and even make it an official public announcement? She didn't know whether to say he was capable or if she should throw him out of the house for being such a playboy. Fortunately, Gu Junqing was her own son, and having more daughters-in-law wasn't necessarily a bad thing. Regardless, she was a mother who would always stand by his side. After grumbling to herself, she quickly accepted the reality of the situation. The problem was that while this bastard son was off picking up women in the capital, she was the one who had to soothe the hearts of his wives back in Luodu. This foolish boy, if you want to chase women, just do it. Why go public? It's too stupid, Xie Ying muttered to herself again. She didn't care about his relationships, but she was genuinely terrified that one day he would be slashed to death by one of these women. After entering the estate, a woman came out to greet her, possessing a long, graceful figure and a flawless face with blonde hair cascading down like a waterfall. Her brisk and light movements betrayed her exceptional agility. Little Hepburn. Xie Ying was not surprised to see a foreigner and smiled warmly. Auntie. Hepburn responded with a hint of unease. Although this wasn't the first time she had spoken to Xie Ying, the woman was Gu Junqing's mother, so her tone was always tinged with respect. Xie Ying knew that Hepburn was one of Gu Junqing's women, and since he trusted her deeply, he had appointed her as the estate manager to handle various affairs after he left for the capital. Rumor had it that she was once a member of a foreign mercenary group and possessed incredible capabilities. Xie Ying did not care about her background. It was enough to know that she was one of her son's women. In truth, Xie Ying couldn't understand why her son had such immense charm that so many stunning beauties would fall for him, even when fully aware of his playboy nature. The key was that these beauties were all incredibly capable, as if destiny itself were aiding them in everything they did. Why call me auntie? Come on, call me mom, Xie Ying teased while looking at Hepburn. Hepburn's delicate face flushed red at the remark, as she was usually cold and indifferent to outsiders, even capable of killing without a blink, but she could not maintain such composure around anyone related to Gu Junqing. She had surrendered her heart to him the moment he rescued her, pulling her out of the dark, cold abyss of her past. Fine, I won't force you. By the way, have you heard any news about Gu Junqing recently? Xie Ying blinked, testing the waters. Yes, auntie. You mean the news report, right? He already called and explained it to me. Hepburn nodded. Don't you mind it? Xie Ying couldn't help but ask. How could I not mind? Everyone wants their man to look only at them, but Gu Junqing is different. He is as dazzling as the sun, making people gaze at him involuntarily, yet he seems to hide so many things in his heart. No woman could ever truly grasp a man like him. A mix of longing and gloom appeared on Hepburn's face. The blend of emotions was heartbreaking to witness. Even Xie Ying sighed, having asked this question to many of his women before, and they all shared this same attitude. They cared, but they wouldn't interfere too much. Hepburn had shared something with her before, perhaps due to her past experiences, which made her temperament lean towards Yandra tendencies. Yet, even she was so indulgent towards Gu Junqing. I wonder where this son of mine learned to be such a master manipulator, Xie Ying muttered to herself. Her son was certainly talented, but he wasn't exactly what Hepburn described. It was as if he had brainwashed them from the very start. That damn scumbag. Damn it, he really is a living piece of shit. Xie Ying cursed internally. If he weren't her son, she would have beaten him to death for ruining so many girls' lives. Chapter 1002. That damn scumbag. Piffed. Well, whatever. Let him be a scumbag. He is my son after all. Xie Ying sighed softly in her heart. If Gu Junqing were not her son, she would definitely beat him to death for ruining so many outstanding girls. Being a woman herself, she could naturally sense how Hepburn felt. It was disheartening and bleak for anyone to realize that the person they longed for held more than just them in their heart. However, since it was her son, she could grudgingly accept it. Good fertilizer should not go to outsiders. Her son was so outstanding and capable that having more daughters-in-law was not a big deal, and since these daughters-in-law were all exceptional and beautiful, they should not go to anyone else. Thinking about it this way, Xie Ying did not feel as troubled anymore. It must be said that everyone has blind spots for bias. People generally believe they are objective and neutral, but in reality, except for a very few saints, everyone applies double standards. Even those who claim to be rational, objective, and neutral are bound to be hypocritical. Double standards are human nature, as objectivity is relative while subjectivity is absolute. This was the case for Xie Ying, as in her heart, nothing in this world compared to Gu Junqing. Gu Junqing's position in her life could be described as irrational and unconditional pampering. Although she scolded him occasionally, if anyone else dared to insult him, she would defend him at all costs. Xie Ying lowered her eyes slightly before raising them again, a mocking smile appearing on her face that made her thoughts impossible to decipher. It must be said that Xie Ying's acting skills were equally excellent. After all, she came from a top-tier family, like the Xie family in the Xia kingdom. She could not have helped maintain such a large family, or stabilized Gu Junqing's harem, without some means of her own. One must know that every one of Gu Junqing's women was a stunning, distinct, and capable heroine. Even though Xie Ying held the position of mother-in-law, and was respected by the women, this was still the case. Managing them and maintaining their relationships was not an easy task. Only someone like Xie Ying, who was kind, tactful, and held an extremely important relationship with Gu Junqing, could achieve this. Hepburn calmed her emotions and returned to her usual poker face. By the way, Auntie, are you here to find Miss Mu? Her mood only fluctuated when the name Gu Junqing appeared. For everything else, she remained calm and composed. Yes, it is about my foolish son's public announcement. By the way, does she know about it? Because trying to conquer 7 sisters in a row was scandalous, Gu Junqing had not told Xie Ying about the 7 Mu sisters. Therefore, Xie Ying was worried about whether Mu Peining would be dissatisfied after learning about this. After all, Mu Peining had plunged into research as soon as she arrived in Luodu from the capital, leaving them with very little interaction. She should know. Because Miss Mu was personally appointed by Junqing, she has high authority, and we have not restricted her contact with the outside world, Hepburn explained. I see, so has she shown any signs of dissatisfaction? Xie Ying asked again. No, Hepburn shook her head. Upon hearing this, Xie Ying rubbed her chin in confusion. In her view, there was an 80% chance that this scientist named Mu Peining was involved with her womanizing son. Otherwise, why would she travel all the way from the capital to Luodu to work for Gu Junqing? Yet, despite Gu Junqing making an official announcement with another woman, she showed no reaction at all, which seemed quite unscientific. Chapter 1003. Xie Ying followed Hepburn, touring the base nestled within the mountain range. The Gu family had hollowed out several massive mountains, transforming them into a complex of research facilities. These spaces were divided into various departments, all collaborating on top-secret technological projects. Beyond the underground expanse, the Gu family had also established numerous surface-level bases to serve as cover. Having acquired 2 godly rich systems, Gu Junqing spared no expense in building his own power. Average protagonists with such systems typically wasted their lives on luxury cars and women, never considering social advancement. Most of these individuals were arrogant, self-absorbed, and focused solely on enjoying their own companies. They had zero interest in actual progress. If one used technology that could create precious metals or substances with minimal energy correctly, it could theoretically lead to a utopian society. Gu Junqing, however, had no interest in such lofty ideals. Even if material productivity reached that standard, a highly developed spiritual civilization remained incredibly difficult to achieve. With his current wealth, Gu Junqing was heavily investing in various technological advancements. He cultivated his own immortal arts to strengthen himself, but for the family's sake, he chose to focus on technology. Otherwise, the family would offer no help when facing future protagonists. Currently, few in the family could keep pace with him, save for his master, Jizuyu. The thought of future reincarnated supreme immortal emperors or god-tier demon emperors always gave Gu Junqing a headache. Accompanying these powerful figures were greater threats like alien invasions, spatial rifts, nuclear wars, and apocalypses. Ordinary people would perish countless times over in such scenarios. Faced with protagonists who could dominate everything, or world-ending catastrophes, money and power were just a joke. Gu Junqing might be a villain, but he was not a monster. He could not manage others, nor did he care to. This was only one facet of his operations, as the old Gu family could never have supported such massive financial expenditures. She did not understand why Gu Junqing insisted on this research. Still, the Gu family could sustain it, and these internal costs did not hinder their external expansion, so she left it alone. The Gu family treated Gu Junqing as their faith and leader, and she held absolute trust in her son. Hey, why do they have to look at Junqing's portrait whenever they enter a lab? Xie Ying noticed a strange pattern as she observed the base. Almost every door leading to the research institutes displayed a photograph of Gu Junqing. At first, she assumed it was just her son being a bit narcissistic. She soon noticed that every staff member, whether researchers or supply staff, had to pause and gaze at the photo for several seconds before passing through. Some researchers, visibly exhausted after days of work, seemed to regain their energy and spirit immediately after locking eyes with Gu Junqing's portrait. Was her son so handsome that he functioned as a stimulant? Xie Ying felt perplexed. Hepburn hesitated, considering what Gu Junqing had told her, but realizing Xie Ying was his mother, she decided not to hide the truth. Hepburn leaned in and whispered, knowing these words could not be overheard. These photos were provided by Junqing. You know, most of these researchers are hired from the outside, and non-disclosure agreements cannot guarantee they won't leak information, so we need to control them. So this is the method of control? Xie Ying asked, shocked and confused. I am not entirely sure, as Junqing only explained it briefly. It seems to be a hypnotic technique that influences the mind, and subtly fosters loyalty toward him, ensuring no one dares to betray him. Hepburn whispered, her tone revealing her own lack of complete understanding. Xie Ying remained skeptical. She believed that hypnosis and brainwashing could secure loyalty, but the idea that simply looking at a photo could control someone's mind seemed unbelievable. She approached a door, staring at the photo of Gu Junqing to test her theory. The Gu Junqing in the photo seemed to shimmer with light, looking so vivid that it felt as if his eyes were truly watching her. As she looked at him, Xie Ying found herself nodding, feeling a sense of pride. Her son was indeed handsome, and while he was cute as a child, he had grown into a man with a charisma capable of shouldering any burden. Is this what it means to grow up? Xie Ying felt a wave of sentimentality. From his reckless past to becoming the pillar of the Gu family, only he understood the hardships of that journey. As she thought about this, she felt an uncharacteristic sadness. Wait, why am I thinking about all this? Xie Ying shook her head, feeling that the situation was somewhat eerie. Suddenly, she felt as if the eyes in the photo had moved, though when she looked again, everything appeared normal. That is truly strange, she muttered to herself. She stopped being surprised by whatever Gu Junqing brought out, as she had already witnessed things far more bizarre and contrary to the laws of physics. Chapter 1005. Inside the vast isolation chamber, Mu Peining, as the lead researcher for this artificial sun experiment, was summarizing the results. This experiment has been a preliminary success, proving that this material can indeed withstand the heat. However, we still need to conduct more tests to verify long-term stability. Mu Peining spoke calmly. Seeing the researchers standing in solemn anticipation, she paused for a moment before a beautiful smile graced her flawless face. Of course, our project can be considered a massive success. The Gu Corporation will celebrate your achievements. Hearing Mu Peining's words, all the researchers in the isolation chamber could not help but cheer loudly. They had not only fulfilled the Gu Corporation's request, but also witnessed a massive leap in human history. At the current rate of human resource consumption, the artificial sun only needs to run for a few minutes to meet the energy demands of the entire planet for a year. This will revolutionize the entire human energy supply system. Of course, none of them could know what the future held. However, for safety reasons, I hope everyone will keep the experiment results confidential for now. Mu Peining knew Gu Junqing had his own methods, but to be safe, she issued a final, subtle warning. That is only natural. Most of us did not do much, as the core technology was provided by the Gu Corporation. The group agreed in unison. Mu Peining nodded slightly and turned to leave with her deputy. Just as they walked into the hallway, a voice suddenly called out, "Professor Mu, wait." A handsome man, looking to be around 35 years old, stood up and called out to her. The voice caused Mu Peining and her deputy to stop. Is there something you need? Mu Peining asked calmly, frowning slightly. I just wanted to ask if you have a boyfriend, Professor. If you do not, would you consider becoming my girlfriend? Several senior professors who had been following her, intending to ask questions about the experiment, stopped in their tracks upon hearing this. What is that kid's background? One of the old professors asked in confusion. I heard he is a young doctor from a top foreign university, specializing in high-tech industries. He is young, well-educated, and has good credentials, but was only assigned to our lab today because we were short-staffed. Another female professor answered in a low voice. The kid is not bad then. To stand out in this industry at his age is an accomplishment. Do you think he has a chance? The old professor asked, surprised. What do you think? I think it is impossible. Professor Mu is certainly out of his league, and only that Gu kid is a match for her. The old professor pondered. Both he and the female professor had been personally invited by Gu Junqing from the Xie Academy of Sciences, a process that had involved the Xie family's connections, so they were familiar with Gu Junqing and Mu Peining. If you knew that, why ask? The female professor replied irritably. On the other side, the man who had confessed to Mu Peining did not hide his intentions, even knowing others were watching. He looked at Mu Peining confidently, his eyes burning with desire. Such a beautiful and charming woman, with top-tier intelligence and refined culture, was the only type worthy of him. He was brimming with self-confidence. Looking at the other researchers in the institute, they were either women or old men, making him the youngest male professor present. He had no competition at all. No, Mu Peining did not even spare him a glance, coldly dropping the word before turning and leaving with her deputy without hesitation. The man watched Mu Peining's beautiful back as she walked away, despite her wearing a white lab coat. What a pity. It seems I will not have a chance with such a beautiful woman. However, this artificial sun technology has been researched to such a degree. If I sell this information to another country, a glimmer of greed appeared in the man's eyes. He had not been at the Gu family's research institute for long, but he had been assigned to this top-secret project due to a manpower shortage. The content of the experiment shocked him to his core. If this technology were made public, he would absolutely gain unimaginable wealth, likely surpassing what he could earn at the Gu Corporation. As for the non-disclosure agreement he signed with the Gu Corporation, that was worthless. He could just run to another country. Surely a single family in the Xia Kingdom could not control someone in a foreign nation. Lost in these thoughts, the man began walking out of the research lab. The departure process involved several standard procedures. In particular, he was reminded by Gu Corporation management staff to stare at Gu Junqing's photo for 3 seconds before leaving. He was initially dismissive. What kind of ridiculous rule was this? He had worked in the industry for many years and served private clients, but this was the first time he had seen such a rule. However, he saw that everyone else followed it, including several esteemed and highly decorated professors. Feeling guilty, he did not want to attract attention, so he followed suit and stared at the photo. The man is indeed handsome, but quite narcissistic, requiring everyone to look at him upon entering and leaving. Is this some kind of gatekeeper custom for the people of the Xia Kingdom? The researcher muttered to himself. However, as he looked, he noticed something strange. He felt as if the figure in the photo was staring back at him. Suddenly, a beam of bright white light shot from the eyes of the man in the photo directly into his own, and his entire field of vision turned white. Shit! What is this? The light frightened the man, and he scrambled to dodge, but the beam moved too fast. He felt a slight pain between his eyebrows, then nothing. The people around him looked at him with curiosity, making him realize it might have just been an illusion. The man sheepishly apologized to those nearby and hurried away from the scene. After returning to his room, just as he was thinking about how to send out the information he had secretly recorded, he felt a sharp, violent pain in his brain. He let out a scream, collapsed, and within moments, had ceased to breathe. Chapter 1006. Mu Peining was unaware of what happened to the male doctor. After briefly instructing her deputy to transfer him away, she hurried toward the reception room where Xie Ying was waiting. Hepburn had already left to attend to her own business. Xie Ying remained in the reception room alone, waiting for Mu Peining. Auntie Xie. In front of Xie Ying, Mu Peining shed her icy, stunning persona from before others, calling out to her with sweet respect. Looking at Xie Ying's tender, beautiful face, untouched by the passage of time, she finally understood why Gu Junqing was so handsome. It cleared up her confusion. Although Gu Junqing's features were perhaps even more refined and perfect than a woman's, their face shapes were like they had been carved from the same mold. Little Mu, congratulations on the success of your experiment. Come, let's sit and talk. Xie Ying smiled, taking Mu Peining's hand and leading her to the sofa. You have been here for so long, and I haven't properly thanked you for traveling all the way to Luodu. With this major project completed, I don't know how to thank you enough. Xie Ying patted Mu Peining's hand with a sigh. Auntie Xie, I didn't actually do much. I just followed the blueprints and methods Junqing provided to create some special materials. If anything, I should be thanking Junqing for giving me this opportunity. Mu Peining shook her head slightly, refusing to take credit. Honors were not very important to her, as she already possessed enough accolades and auras. She was not wrong, either. Although she was the lead on this experiment, the credit mostly belonged to the technical blueprints provided by Gu Junqing. Besides, nothing was more important now than gaining Xie Ying's favor. She was the first among the sisters to meet Gu Junqing's mother. She absolutely could not embarrass the 7 sisters. Enough, stop giving that brat credit he doesn't deserve. He is just an absentee owner, who does nothing but make empty promises and order others around. Xie Ying scolded with a laugh, but the affection in her tone was evident. Most mothers are like this. They can scold their own children, but they will certainly feel uncomfortable if others do the same. After chatting about daily life for a while, Mu Peining asked sweetly, Auntie Xie, you must have a reason for coming to see me so suddenly, right? Her current experiment was only in its preliminary stages, and this was not Xie Ying's area of management. Clearly, Xie Ying had not come for this reason. Ahem, when will you change Auntie to Mom? Xie Ying coughed lightly, intentionally changing the subject with a smile. If Hepburn were still here, she would only be speechless at these words, reflecting on exactly where Gu Junqing inherited his shamelessness. Xie Ying was truly satisfied with Mu Peining. She was beautiful, intelligent, sensible, and sweet. It is said that a nation's scientific strength is largely determined by its young researchers. Mu Peining, at her young age, had already become a pillar for the next generation of scientific research in the Xia Kingdom. If her genes were combined with Gu Junqing's, she could only imagine how monstrously talented their children would be. Auntie Xie. Mu Peining froze for a moment, and a faint blush appeared on her delicate face. She rarely felt this shy even when she was with Gu Junqing himself. She had not expected his mother to make her blush with a single sentence. All right, I won't tease you anymore. Seeing this, Xie Ying knew she shouldn't push it. Besides, it was clear that Mu Peining was very interested in her son. She still had to explain Gu Junqing's recent reckless behavior to her. He had dared to make an official public announcement with a woman, and one with such a high profile at that. Now, it was impossible to stop. Fortunately, seeing that Mu Peining still blushed over her son, it seemed she hadn't been affected by the news at all. Yet, if she really liked her son that much, how could she seem completely unaffected by his public announcement with another woman? This made Xie Ying feel somewhat uncertain. This was why she had come today to test Mu Peining's true feelings. With such an outstanding daughter-in-law, she did not want Mu Peining to slip away. Chapter 1007. Xie Ying wanted to probe how Mu Peining would react to Gu Junqing's public announcement. According to what Gu Junqing had said, he and Mu Peining had not actually been together for very long. In her view, their relationship might not have reached a deeply profound level yet. Take someone like Hepburn, for example, who had personally avenged him and faced life and death with him, building deep affection over time. So, while she would feel jealous over Gu Junqing publicly announcing a relationship with another woman, she would not think of leaving him because of it. However, she was not entirely clear about Mu Peining's true feelings for her son. In reality, it was because that bastard son of hers rarely called home. She did not have a clear grasp of everything Gu Junqing was doing in the capital, let alone being able to find out what he was up to now. Gu Junqing would not allow anyone to pry into his affairs unless he gave his permission. This was especially true for his private life. This left Xie Ying, as his mother, full of resentment. Could she, as his mother, not even understand the daily life of her own son? Little Mu. Xie Ying cleared her throat, about to ask with a look of feigned concern. Unexpectedly, Mu Peining shook her head and said respectfully, "Auntie Xie, just call me Peining." "All right, then I will call you Peining from now on." Seeing that Mu Peining intended to bridge the distance, Xie Ying naturally could not refuse. She would have to change how she addressed her eventually, so calling her by her name now just meant she would be calling her daughter-in-law later. "Peining, have you been watching, the news lately?" Xie Ying hesitated for a moment, weighing her words before tentatively asking. "The news? What are you referring to?" Mu Peining tucked a few strands of hair behind her ear, asking with a look of confusion. "It is this." Xie Ying did not want to beat around the bush, so she handed her phone directly to Mu Peining, displaying the declaration and photo of Gu Junqing and Liu Qingyi's public announcement. Mu Peining's reaction upon seeing the photo left Xie Ying feeling a bit strange. From the moment she laid eyes on the photo, the corners of Mu Peining's mouth curved upward uncontrollably. Did this look like the reaction of someone who had just seen her man publicly announce a relationship with another woman? Xie Ying wondered to herself. She did not think Mu Peining had failed to recognize Gu Junqing, as anyone familiar with him would be able to pinpoint him even from that blurry profile. "If you have any grievances, I will teach him a lesson for you. Also, do not worry about the woman in the photo. If you do not want her, I will not let her enter our home." Xie Ying assumed Mu Peining was just pretending, so she quickly grabbed her hand with a fierce expression. In reality, she was calculating that if Mu Peining refused, but Gu Junqing truly liked her, she would just have him keep her as a mistress on the side. This Liu Qingyi seemed just as outstanding, and any children they had would surely be good-looking. "So, Auntie Xie, you came today just to ask me about this?" Xie Ying was stunned for a moment, still feeling puzzled. "Well, did Junqing not tell you about the other sisters in my family?" Mu Peining asked in confusion. "He did, but I have never met them in person, so I don't know them." Xie Ying lied without batting an eye. However, she was screaming internally. Gu Junqing, that little bastard, hadn't said a damn thing. She had no idea Mu Peining had other family members. She only knew that Mu Peining was an incredibly capable genius scientist Gu Junqing had brought back, and that she was one of his daughters-in-law. He hadn't mentioned a single word beyond that. Even with this public announcement, he had just asked Xie Ying to go and appease his women. In truth, this could not be blamed on Gu Junqing, as even he had not yet fully investigated everything regarding the seven sisters. It would be unwise to let his family interact with the heroines before everything was settled. "I don't mind. The master who saved us from the fire once told us that we seven would have a destined husband in the future. Perhaps it is just a concept we accepted from a young age, so I do not have any requirements in this regard." Mu Peining shook her head. What if there are more than 7 people? Xie Ying asked herself a question she dared not voice right now. "I won't interfere with the affairs of you young people. As long as you are all doing well, that is enough," Xie Ying said with a smile. "Auntie, you are not old at all. If it were not for my relationship with Junqing, I would really want to call you sister." Mu Peining said quickly. "Well, that is not impossible. We can handle it separately. When Junqing is around, you can call me auntie, and when he is not, you can call me sister. How does that sound?" Xie Ying said with a smile. She said this because she still wanted to keep herself removed from his messes. She could occasionally provide cover for Gu Junqing, but he was all grown up now. She couldn't keep cleaning up his messes forever. Gu Junqing should understand the consequences of his own actions by now. Besides, she really liked Mu Peining. Girls like her were rare to find. "Of course, that sounds great." Mu Peining quickly agreed. She might be a bit cold, but that did not mean she was stupid. How could she not take such an easy opportunity to win favor with the mother of her lover? Then it is a deal. The relationship between the two grew even closer during this conversation. Chapter 1008. On the other side, Gu Junqing lacked the sentimental anxiety that Xie Ying felt about losing her daughters-in-law. Xie Ying could not look through people to see their favorability indicators like he could. Although these indicators could not fully describe a person's complex emotions, they remained largely unaffected by minor shifts. For example, Gu Junqing only felt at ease when the heroines he targeted reached a level of devotion where they would follow him through life and death. There were even a few whose love for him was so overwhelming that it practically spilled over. Although he possessed many heroines, and they were all infatuated with him, he was truly a gentleman at heart. He was utterly repulsed by the idea of keeping multiple women or acting like a bully. It was precisely because he was a gentleman that he wanted to help these women find a good home. He was not a playboy. He just felt his heart had shattered into many pieces, and each piece fell in love with a different person. Loving just one person was too tiring, so he decided to love dozens. Gu Junqing felt his character was truly noble. "What are you thinking about?" Liu Qingyi asked lazily. Gu Junqing withdrew his thoughts on the future and fixed his gaze on Liu Qingyi. She lay languidly across the sofa, her sexy, mysterious black-stockinged legs bent in the air, showing off her fair skin. Her crossed legs highlighted her shimmering feet, and her round, full hips arched into a perfect curve. She rested her delicate chin on a soft hand, lifting a charming, exquisite face. Her captivating eyes stared at Gu Junqing with interest. I was wondering how you plan to thank me this time, third sister. I sacrificed my long-guarded reputation just to be your shield, Gu Junqing said with profound sadness. She looked as if she were a respectable woman forced into wrongdoing by a bully, losing her innocence. Liu Qingyi felt a chill at her own thought, but she quickly put on a teasing, seductive smile. With her red lips slightly parted, she purred, "Little brother Gu, am I beautiful?" The sweet, delicate voice was enough to make a man like Gu Junqing, who had seen countless beauties, feel weak in the knees. "Humph, call me brother-in-law," Gu Junqing scoffed, putting on a front as if he were completely immune to her charm. "Brother-in-law, my foot. You must have cast a spell on second sister, or you would never be my brother-in-law. Quit talking nonsense, am I pretty or not?" Liu Qingyi dropped the act, sat up, and glared at Gu Junqing with murderous intent in her eyes. It seemed as if she would fight him to the death if he dared to say she wasn't pretty. "Pretty, you're pretty." Gu Junqing dared not lie to her face, so he quickly replied, "If you know I'm pretty, what else is there to be dissatisfied about? Are you unhappy about having me as your girlfriend for free? How many people would jump at the chance if they knew?" Liu Qingyi lay back down, satisfied, and huffed. "I'd only be satisfied if you gave yourself to me for free," Gu Junqing muttered. "What did you say?" Liu Qingyi looked at him, confused. I said. Who would want to be cursed every day? Haven't you seen how your fanatic fans are insulting me?" Gu Junqing quickly changed the subject. "That's your own fault for stealing everyone's goddess. Do you expect them not to vent online?" Liu Qingyi said solemnly, though the slight curve of her lips revealed that she was actually quite pleased he was being insulted. "Stolen? It's not even real, it's just for show." Gu Junqing curled his lip. "Why? Are you really thinking about making a move on your sister-in-law?" Liu Qingyi's eyes flashed. "It is not as if I haven't." Gu Junqing fixed his gaze on her enticing lips and said meaningfully, "You pervert, get out." A flash of shy anger crossed Liu Qingyi's eyes. She sprang up from the wide sofa, grabbed a pillow, and hurled it at Gu Junqing's head. When she saw he was completely unharmed, she lifted her black-stockinged foot and kicked toward him. She didn't expect that after only 2 kicks, Gu Junqing would deftly grab her ankle. He effortlessly lifted her jade-like calf onto his shoulder and pressed down. A faint, fragrant scent immediately wafted into Gu Junqing's nose. They were very close, and fortunately, Liu Qingyi's body was incredibly flexible. Staring at her face at such close range was intoxicating. Her peach blossom cheeks, refined nose, willow brows, and phoenix eyes were stunning, while her skin was as white as snow and smooth as jade. Her stomach was smooth, her waist slender enough to be gripped, and her long, smooth legs in black stockings were full and rounded, exuding an intense, seductive charm. "What are you doing? Put me down." Liu Qingyi was terrified by their current position. She had intended to cure her androphobia by spending time with Gu Junqing, but she certainly had not planned on going straight to the end game. Chapter 1009. Liu Qingyi, as the most popular pop diva of the moment, naturally maintained a flawless image. Her fair, tender skin was delicate, soft, and felt remarkably elastic to the touch. With her stunning face so close and her legs hoisted over his shoulders, the posture ignited an unusual surge of desire in Gu Junqing. Liu Qingyi was in a much more distressing situation. She had always harbored a slight aversion toward men, having never met anyone capable of conquering her, and she initially believed no man could truly be worthy of her. She never imagined that one day she would be pinned down by a man in such a shameful position. "Let me go, otherwise I will call for help." Liu Qingyi arched her feet, her toes curling slightly, as her eyes glared at Gu Junqing with a mix of fury and resentment. She tried desperately to break free from his grasp, but with her ankles locked in his grip, she could not move. Her cheeks were flushed with a light red, and her eyes misted over in a display of mixed shame and anger. She had originally intended to seduce Gu Junqing to see if he would make any small moves on her. She never expected him to be so brazen. They were in her office, with many members of her team just outside the door. If she shouted, someone would definitely rush in. "Why would I be afraid?" Gu Junqing chuckled softly. "Don't forget, I am your boyfriend now. What is wrong with a little playful intimacy? It is fake. Let me go now. Beg me. Otherwise, I will not let go." Gu Junqing said with a smile. "You can forget about that." A crimson flush spread across Liu Qingyi's struggling face, as she used all her strength to try and push Gu Junqing away. The gap in their physical strength was too wide, and no matter how she struggled, she could not break free. Gu Junqing did not release her, seeing she was unwilling to beg. He wanted Liu Qingyi to yield to him so he could establish authority and initiative in their relationship. Liu Qingyi often appeared peaceful, kind, and friendly to her subordinates. In reality, even if she acted humble, she was extremely arrogant at heart. She was a goddess held up by countless fans, overflowing with talent, elegance, and nobility, reaching a height that made people look up to her. Only those she cared about, or those who truly caught her eye, could receive her genuine respect. Is that so? Then I will continue to work hard. Gu Junqing remained unmoved and continued to press down on Liu Qingyi's body, the angle of her legs gradually shifting from 90 degrees to 60, then 45. As the angle between her body and legs decreased, their posture became increasingly shameful, and she felt as if she were about to be folded in half by the man on top of her. Liu Qingyi finally could not take it anymore, although her flexibility was excellent and she felt no pain from this level of movement. Still, being pinned by a man in this position was something she simply could not tolerate. Most critically, she felt a slight dampness between her legs, and a strange, foreign impulse began to shock her body and mind. This was inconceivable for Liu Qingyi, who had always struggled with an aversion toward men. It also made her afraid to continue the ambiguous interaction with Gu Junqing. Fine, I beg you. Liu Qingyi's voice finally turned pleading. Say it. Brother-in-law, I beg you to stop pressing down. A smile appeared in Gu Junqing's eyes as a sense of mischief rose in his heart. Liu Qingyi wanted to bite the man on top of her to death. How could her second sister actually fall in love with such a bastard? She cursed Gu Junqing wildly in her heart. Yet, just thinking of that phrase made her heartbeat accelerate far beyond before, and the stirring in her body grew even more intense. Brother-in-law, I beg you to stop pressing down. Liu Qingyi could no longer endure the sensation. She closed her crystal-clear eyes and spoke with extreme shyness and gentle, winding affection. Hiss, hearing that just makes me want to press harder. Gu Junqing drew a sharp breath. The rich, fragrant scent of Liu Qingyi's body made his blood boil. Just then, the sound of the door opening startled them both. I am sorry, I forgot to knock. Liu Qingyi's female subordinate pushed open the door and immediately blushed, retreating quickly after seeing Liu Qingyi pinned by Gu Junqing in such a position. It seemed that young Master Gu and Qingyi were truly a couple, to be in such a shameful position, and even calling him brother-in-law. Chapter 1010. Let me go. Liu Qingyi warned the man still pinning her down in a low voice. Gu Junqing narrowed his eyes. He knew he had to release Liu Qingyi's silky, black-stockinged feet now. He still sighed inwardly at how wonderful those 1 meter 1 long legs would be if they could serve as a cannon mount. The small feet wrapped in black stockings were soft and tender. Those petite, jade-like feet were crystal clear, without a hint of odor, instead carrying a tempting, sweet fragrance. Gu Junqing had marveled more than once at the unique gifts of the heroine. It was a pity, but he had to let go now. Gu Junqing stood up with a click of his tongue, releasing his grip on Liu Qingyi's ankles. The moment he let go, Liu Qingyi retracted her legs with lightning speed. She stared at Gu Junqing with guarded, beautiful, and misty eyes. Seeing that he had stepped back, the intoxicating blush that had spread from her face to her snowy neck and collarbone slowly began to fade. Gu Junqing, don't let me catch you with any dirt on you. Liu Qingyi tilted her exquisite, icy face upward, her eyes blazing with fury as she gritted her teeth. That bastard had actually made her say such shameful words. Whenever she thought about how she had seductively said brother-in-law, I beg you to stop pressing, she wanted to find a hole and bury herself. She also wanted to bury Gu Junqing, the bastard who forced her to say such things, right alongside her. No, that would be letting him off too easily. He deserved death by 1,000 cuts. Liu Qingyi's internal complaints about Gu Junqing were firing off like a machine gun. She had truly never met a man as shameless as Gu Junqing. I only have one handle, would you like to take hold of it? A meaningful smile appeared on the corner of Gu Junqing's mouth. Gu Junqing, my second sister told me you were a good person, who was just a little shameless and lecherous. I think she understated it. My second sister used shameless and lecherous to describe you, but I would just use you as the definition of those words. Liu Qingyi said angrily. Thanks for the compliment. Gu Junqing said happily, seemingly unashamed at all. Indeed, he was a villain. If he wasn't shameless and lecherous, what good qualities would he have? This was clearly praise. Seeing that he was not only not angry, but even happy, Liu Qingyi was about to explode with rage. She couldn't win an argument. He seemed happy when she scolded him, and she couldn't beat him in a fight. She feared that if she tried again, she would be caught and teased mercilessly. It was the first time Liu Qingyi had ever encountered such a difficult man. Are you still not leaving? Liu Qingyi said coldly to Gu Junqing. It was a clear case of out of sight, out of mind. Ahem, third sister, you told me not to leave your side except when you're sleeping. Gu Junqing blinked and said with a smile. He then sat on the sofa to the side, looking indifferent. Liu Qingyi was once again rendered speechless by anger. Knock, knock, knock. Just then, the assistant outside the door knocked again. Liu Qingyi and Gu Junqing locked eyes for a moment. Seeing that he really had no intention of leaving, she could only helplessly call out, come in. The assistant, who had accidentally caught an inappropriate sight, walked in with a flushed face. I'm sorry, Sister Qingyi, I didn't mean to skip the knock. The assistant feared blame and apologized quickly. It's fine. We weren't actually doing anything. Liu Qingyi forced a smile and spoke kindly. She had no intention of blaming the assistant. In fact, she felt a bit grateful. Had she not interrupted, Gu Junqing would surely have gone even further. She even started mentally calculating how much of a bonus she should give the assistant. Yes, Sister Qingyi and the handsome Mr. Gu were doing nothing at all. The assistant nodded quickly, acting as if she had seen nothing, and repeated her assurance with solemn intensity. Fine. What is it? Liu Qingyi shook her head helplessly. That. Ye Mingming is here to see you, the assistant said quickly. Gu Junqing narrowed his eyes upon hearing this. If the assistant hadn't interrupted, he would have definitely taken things a step further. At the very least, taking advantage of the moment to grope a bit was a given. But he had been interrupted. This cross-dressing protagonist had arrived at the most inconvenient time. Understood. Have someone bring her in. Liu Qingyi thought for a moment, remembering that today was the day Ye Peng was scheduled to report in, and nodded. I'll be going then. The assistant walked out cautiously. She glanced at Gu Junqing and, seeing him smile and gesture at her, she hurried out in a panic, fearing that Gu Junqing would take his anger out on her for disturbing their good time. Don't tell anyone about what just happened. Liu Qingyi gave a subtle reminder just as the assistant closed the door. Yes, the assistant replied. Once the door was fully shut, she patted her chest in relief. For some reason, she felt the atmosphere inside was too oppressive, making her feel quite frightened. After having someone escort Yipeng in, she returned to her desk. Once seated, she felt her face flush whenever she thought of the scene she had just witnessed. She never imagined that the elegant and noble Liu Qingyi could be so sweet when alone with her boyfriend. The thought made her itch to share the news. She called over her closest friend and whispered, "Girl, let me tell you something, but you must not tell anyone else." Just now, after finishing, she made her friend promise once more not to tell anyone. Her friend listened with glowing eyes and nodded repeatedly. That friend then called over her own closest friend, "Girl, let me tell you something, but you must not tell anyone else." In just a few hours, the story of what happened in the office between Gu Junqing and Liu Qingyi had spread through the entire team. It essentially confirmed that, although Liu Qingyi claimed their relationship was fake on the surface, it was actually real. This caused everyone in Liu Qingyi's studio to have their impression of Gu Junqing skyrocket. Chapter 1012. Aside from Wanyu Xia and the stylists who had been there from the start, the rest of Liu Qingyi's studio staff held complex views about Gu Junqing. No man had ever appeared by Liu Qingyi's side before. Now that one suddenly appeared, with their relationship so ambiguous, they were naturally full of curiosity about Gu Junqing. However, upon learning Gu Junqing was a wealthy second-generation heir, they began to feel slightly hostile toward him. Liu Qingyi was the epicenter of the entertainment industry's whirlpool, and every member of her team stood closest to that center. Consequently, they had seen countless so-called wealthy heirs try to pursue her. Innumerable people had tried to bribe team members just to track her whereabouts. Some sinister individuals even hoped to buy off staff to entrap or drug her. Many of these despicable people were heirs who thought their power and money allowed them to manipulate the entertainment scene. Because of this, the team could not respect the character of many such wealthy scions. Even if Gu Junqing was handsome and looked like a good match for Liu Qingyi, past lessons taught them that many people appeared harmless while harboring unknown agendas. Who knew if Gu Junqing was truly treating Liu Qingyi well? However, Liu Qingyi's team operated within the entertainment industry. They had sensitive channels for any gossip or inside information. Other team members who were unclear about the situation quickly shared details about their daily life and interactions from Xia and Zhangzhen, the most core members of the team. Added to this was the intel from the assistant about how they acted when alone. The entire team's favorability toward Gu Junqing instantly hit maximum capacity. This also had a lot to do with Gu Junqing's appearance. Men who were good-looking, talented, and capable were simply too attractive to women. Furthermore, the way Gu Junqing and Liu Qingyi interacted was incredibly sweet and delightful to watch. Rumor even had it that they played out brother-in-law and sister-in-law scenarios in private. Many female staff members stomped their feet in excitement upon hearing these rumors. It was into this strange and excited environment that Yipeng officially stepped to join the team. He wore a light-colored dress today, the form-fitting fabric accentuating his increasingly feminine figure. Every gesture he made held a special charm. He had specifically applied elegant and subtle makeup for today, and he had padded his chest to avoid looking too flat. He did this to make a good impression on Liu Qingyi's team members. While Liu Qingyi's success was largely due to her beauty and vocal skills, her team was also crucial to her rise. Her team's efforts in marketing and publicity were equally indispensable. Rumor had it that her team maintained a massive army of online trolls that would flood the internet to counter any news attempting to smear her. Insiders jokingly referred to the person managing this troll army as the commander of the 800,000. Because the trolls intimidated everyone, it was hard to find any negative news about her online, a testament to her team's capability. If he could just build a good relationship with this team, his path in the entertainment industry would be smooth sailing. Chapter 1013. Yipeng strolled through the office area before meeting Liu Qingyi. He observed most of the members of Liu Qingyi's team. Upon entering, he heard the sounds of typing, mingled with the employees' laughter, chatter, and whispered gossip. The entire space seemed to possess boundless vitality. Yipeng grew more excited and envious the more he looked. The various fresh or rich perfumes made his mood soar. Almost every member was a stunning beauty with remarkable features. Since they operated in the entertainment circle, even those behind the scenes were part of Liu Qingyi's core team. Not a single one of them was ugly. To Yipeng, walking in here felt just like entering heaven. After all, he would be spending his days and nights with these beautiful sisters from now on. Don't worry, everyone here is very nice. If you truly join us, everyone will offer you advice behind the scenes, the assistant leading Yipeng said, noticing him watching the staff. She assumed he was concerned about the work environment. Yipeng nodded quickly. At the same time, he warned himself to be extremely careful. The current situation was not like his old online live streams, so he could not display a lecherous expression. If he truly entered the entertainment industry, he had to pay extreme attention to his every move. He even had to control his eyes and expressions. Under the spotlight, the media could interpret a single gesture or expression in 1,000 different ways. Go in alone, the assistant said, leading Yipeng to Liu Qingyi's office. Yipeng pushed open the door with extreme excitement. A spotless, brand-new environment greeted him first, suggesting the owner was a neat freak. The entire office was spacious and bright, making it feel extremely comfortable. Yipeng scanned every corner of the office. Suddenly, he spotted someone he did not want to see. Looking at Gu Junqing sitting on the sofa, with his peerless handsome features, Ye Peng felt as uncomfortable as if he had eaten shit. Damn it, why are you everywhere? Ye Peng grumbled internally. Seeing Gu Junqing nod slightly as if signaling to him, Ye Peng could only force a smile in response. To be honest, he did not want to see Gu Junqing even more than he wanted to avoid Dao Tianyan, that boyfriend who was always lusting after his body. Because whenever this man was present, nothing he did ever went smoothly. Please sit, a cold voice said. At that moment, Ye Peng shifted his gaze to Liu Qingyi, sitting in the center of the office at her desk. The moment he saw her flawless, jade-like face, Ye Peng could no longer look away. Even with only light makeup, her face was snow-white, translucent, and radiant, and her posture was elegant and noble. Set against the center of the office, she seemed born with an air of cold, lofty arrogance. Yet, her stunning face was flushed with a crimson hue, as if she were drunk. Her forehead was beaded with light sweat, as if she had just finished some intense exercise. Furthermore, the entire office was filled with an oppressive atmosphere that Ye Peng could not describe. The source of this oppressive air seemed to be Gu Junqing and Liu Qingyi themselves. Chapter 1014. Ye Peng felt uneasy, though he could not say why. He stole glances at Liu Qingyi and Gu Junqing, trying to discern exactly what had transpired between them. What are you looking at? Liu Qingyi frowned at the restless Ye Peng, asking with genuine surprise. Gu Junqing remained impassive, though he watched Ye Peng with deep, brooding eyes. He had to admit, these protagonists possessed a canine-like instinct when guided by their fortune. They either stumbled upon opportunities to defy fate, or they arrived just in time to rescue heroines in crisis. Had it not been for Ye Peng's sudden arrival, he could have at least stolen a moment of intimacy. Liu Qingyi might have appeared angry, but her heart was filled with shame and confusion, and he could have deepened their ambiguity. It was a pity that such a favorable opportunity had been cut short by Ye Peng. Could I have Wan Yu, Xia, and Zhang Zhen manage me? Ye Peng asked, his voice filled with longing. You want them to manage you? Liu Qingyi paused in surprise. These people were her core team. It was clear that Ye Peng had ambitions of his own to reach the top. Liu Qingyi did not harbor negative feelings about his ambition. Without such drive, he would never have made it this far. That is not entirely impossible. Liu Qingyi mused, considering the idea internally. She had considered assigning her team to Ye Peng from the very beginning. They were experienced, and she knew they would keep him on the right path. For an artist, a manager is vital. An artist without one is like a blind person crossing a river, as every major star had a strategic manager behind them. These managers secured resources, resolved scandals, maintained public image, and planned for future growth. A good manager allowed the artist to simply shine on stage. Conversely, an irresponsible one could destroy even the most talented performer. Ye Peng felt a surge of joy, seeing Liu Qingyi waver. He had chosen her team for a strategic reason. He knew her personal team was incredibly close to her. They would serve as a bridge to increase his access to her. If he could win over her team members, their influence might persuade her to forgive his deception regarding his gender. Furthermore, these women were all stunning beauties. The prospect of spending every day with them sent a thrill of excitement through his heart. Liu Qingyi narrowed her eyes, tapping her slender fingers on the desk. Just as she opened her eyes to make a decision, Gu Junqing spoke up from the side. Actually, I can help. Chapter 1015. Actually, I can help. Gu Junqing's smiling tone left both Liu Qingyi and Ye Peng feeling uncertain. Liu Qingyi narrowed her eyes, as if trying to figure out exactly what Gu Junqing was up to. Ye Peng, on the other hand, hesitated. He had crossed paths with Gu Junqing a few times before. The first time they met, he had intended to seduce him and turn him into a loyal simp for his cross-dressing persona. Yet not only did he fail to take down Gu Junqing, he had suffered several setbacks because of him. Even his current boyfriend, Dao Tianyan, had been set up by Gu Junqing. This caused his plan to completely turn Dao Tianyan into his own simp to fail miserably. After all, once you have successfully seduced someone, they are no longer a simp. As a result, the cross-dressing points he earned from Dao Tianyan became scarcer and scarcer. Then there was Dao Tianyan himself. He felt that even Dao Tianyan, with his unfathomable backing, had suffered multiple losses at Gu Junqing's hands. He had even witnessed firsthand how Gu Junqing had wooed away the beautiful sister Dao Tianyan longed for day and night. This made Ye Peng constantly vigilant, harboring a deep-seated fear of Gu Junqing. Furthermore, the mysterious genetic virus he had contracted was gradually feminizing both his body and mind. Gu Junqing's peerless, handsome face combined with his mysterious aura, he could simply be called a lady killer. Whether young girls or married women, everyone found traits they adored in Gu Junqing. He was genuinely terrified that as his sexual orientation shifted, he might develop feelings for Gu Junqing. All of this made him walk on eggshells around Gu Junqing, trying his best to avoid any contact or conflict. Ye Peng forced a smile at Gu Junqing. There is no need to trouble you, young Master Gu. I trust Sister Liu will do her best to help me. Gu Junqing waved his hand, putting on a helpful persona. How could that be a problem? I am effectively Dao Tianyan's brother-in-law. Since you are his girlfriend, helping you is only natural. Damn it. Ye Peng had a million things to complain about and didn't know where to start. In the past, he had certainly considered trying to make Gu Junqing his simp, but Gu Junqing seemed extremely resistant to him, showing no desire to get close. He had even introduced him to Dao Tianyan instead. This was simply inconceivable. With the help of his cross-dressing system, his beauty when dressed as a woman was unparalleled. It was barely inferior to Liu Qingyi's peerless appearance. Even the mysterious Dao Tianyan had slowly fallen for his charms. Yet, despite that, when he had practically thrown himself at Gu Junqing, the man had remained unmoved. Now that he was Dao Tianyan's girlfriend, Gu Junqing was suddenly making overtures. He began to suspect that Gu Junqing had some twisted fetish, preferring other men's girlfriends and wives over innocent, single women. The reason Ye Peng felt Gu Junqing was making overtures was simple. It was because of Gu Junqing's claim that he was helping Ye Peng because he was Dao Tianyan's brother-in-law. That sounded like a complete fabrication. Everyone knew that Gu Junqing and Dao Tianyan were like fire and water, with deep-seated hatred between them. Helping the other's girlfriend. It would be lucky if he didn't take the girlfriend to bed himself. It wasn't just Ye Peng who thought this. Even Liu Qingyi looked at Gu Junqing with a strange expression. Gu Junqing had never been this proactive in offering to help her. If she ever wanted a favor from Gu Junqing, she usually had to pay a price. For instance, when he invested billions into her foundation, she had to offer her first ever endorsement to the Gu family in return. She even felt that if he invested more, he wouldn't just want her endorsement, he would want her. Yet, unexpectedly, Gu Junqing was now proactively offering to help another woman. And he didn't seem to expect anything in return. How could Liu Qingyi not find this strange? She stared at him suspiciously, feeling that something was wrong. Was Gu Junqing really the type to help others without expecting a reward? That would be a toad sitting on a golden throne, dreaming. Could he have some designs on this Ye Mingming? That was the only conclusion she could draw. After all, whenever she thought about how he treated her, she had no expectations of his character or integrity. Chapter 1016. What do you plan to do to help? Liu Qingyi cast a sidelong glance at Gu Junqing, eager to see what kind of game he was playing. The ecosystem under my Gu family also extends into the entertainment industry. Have you heard of Anran Entertainment? Gu Junqing said to Ye Peng with a smile. If you are willing to join, I can arrange the best team for you. Ye Peng felt a stir in his heart at these words, secretly wondering about Gu Junqing's intentions. He was not naive enough to believe Gu Junqing genuinely wanted to mentor him. There must be an ulterior motive behind this that he could not foresee. Yet, he had no idea what a figure like Gu Junqing could possibly covet from him. After all, his current status was nothing more than a streamer. Even with a system that made him feel somewhat extraordinary, he did not believe his current value could entice Gu Junqing. Since he could not figure it out, he decided to stop thinking about it. Regardless, leaving Liu Qingyi was not an option. Although he had entered the entertainment industry to increase his popularity and harvest more cross-dressing points, Liu Qingyi was the real reason he had made up his mind. Young Master Gu, I am really sorry, but I still intend to follow Sister Liu, Ye Peng said with an apologetic expression. Before he could finish, Liu Qingyi interrupted him. Liu Qingyi looked at Gu Junqing without a hint of politeness. Hold on a minute, did you say Anran Entertainment is yours? It is, Gu Junqing replied, blinking his eyes. Liu Qingyi was furious upon hearing this. Then was it also your idea to recently acquire my personal studio? Anran Entertainment was one of the capital giants in the industry, involving film, television, marketing, production, and music. Despite being established recently, it was thriving in the entertainment circle thanks to its immense financial backing. It quickly became a giant through aggressive growth and vast resources, recruiting dozens of influential artists and celebrities. It also acquired several major online and offline platforms. Even stars who wanted to act in these platforms' dramas, or have their own works broadcast there, had to share a portion of their earnings with the platform. It practically controlled the rise and fall of celebrities, gaining immense influence in the entertainment industry. Even Liu Qingyi's personal studio received an acquisition offer from Anran Entertainment, hoping to bring the pop diva under their banner. However, Liu Qingyi had no interest in collaborating and flatly refused. Unexpectedly, she had recently faced targeting from Anran Entertainment. The copyrights for several songs on online platforms had run into issues, giving Liu Qingyi a headache. After all, with the platforms in their hands, they could remove or list songs at will. Gu Junqing was somewhat puzzled this time. He truly had never issued the order to acquire Liu Qingyi's studio. Don't pretend. You must have ordered it, Liu Qingyi sneered. Now she could settle old and new scores together. Seeing them at odds, Ye Peng felt secretly delighted. His biggest fear was that Liu Qingyi might fall for Gu Junqing or develop feelings for him. After all, that face of his was the greatest threat, and possessed too much lethality for women. But seeing that Liu Qingyi not only did not like Gu Junqing but was actually targeting him, Ye Peng felt much more relieved. He could not bear the thought that the goddess he revered, the one he fantasized about being with, might one day like another man. Seeing that Gu Junqing still refused to admit it, Liu Qingyi pulled out her phone and made a call. The call was answered quickly, and a voice familiar to Gu Junqing emerged. Miss Liu, what makes you have time to call me? Could it be that you have thought it through and want to join our group? Upon hearing this familiar voice, Gu Junqing raised an eyebrow slightly. Chapter 1017. Miss Liu, why do you have time to call me? Could it be that you have thought it through and want to join our group? Dream on. Liu Qingyi placed the phone on the table in speaker mode and spoke coldly. Miss Liu, I have been very polite to you. If it were anyone else, I would not have given you so much time to consider. Liu Qingyi glanced at Gu Junqing, as if asking if this was the attitude of his company. Is that so? If it were someone else, what would you do? The voice on the other end chuckled lightly and spoke indifferently. I heard you are preparing for a concert. Do you want me to help by delaying it for a few days? Or perhaps I can help further by cutting off your studio's channels to any platform. You know the consequences of that. The voice on the other end was calm, but the threat was painfully obvious. Liu Qingyi was so angry she almost hung up the phone immediately. She was not afraid of his threats. However, this did not mean she could fully protect everyone else in her studio. Capital in the entertainment industry truly had the power to summon wind and rain. Even some star-studded celebrities were merely pawns for capital to harvest leaks. Why were some movies and TV shows filmed so poorly, yet required investments of hundreds of millions, or even billions? Why were some films empty of content, but producers insisted on using props to create grand scenes, as if they had a grudge against money? Why were the acting skills of some actors so poor, yet their salaries reached tens of millions, or even hundreds of millions? You might think this money was all for them. In reality, only a portion went to the stars, while the rest was naturally just the capital side laundering money. For example, they would have the film crew go abroad to shoot promotional material, which naturally consumed a lot of expenses. However, some small countries had no invoices. Some small countries were even just toys under the control of certain capital groups. Under various exchanges of interests, the investment side could say they spent whatever amount they wanted. These were their methods for laundering money. Even if they were investigated in the end, they could just say the film crew and the stars were trying to evade taxes. In short, it was too difficult for ordinary people to understand the truth behind these matters. Everything you see is what others want you to see. The reason Gu Junqing expanded the Gu family business so broadly, even involving society's clothing, food, housing, transportation, and art, was naturally because he intended to launder the wealth he gained from his system. Although the wealth he obtained from the two super-rich systems was clean, he still had to take sufficient precautionary measures to avoid attracting unwanted attention. Increasing revenue sources, increasing channels for consuming resources, and having the Xie family as a protective umbrella made it impossible for others to investigate. Only then could the Gu family develop and grow steadily and rapidly, providing enough support for him to deal with protagonists in the future. However, there were more important matters right now. Gu Junqing looked at Liu Qingyi, whose small face was tense and whose gorgeous eyes were flashing with extreme anger, and found it somewhat amusing. He had not seen her this angry even when he forcibly hoisted her legs onto his shoulders earlier. Clearly, the person on the other end of the phone had truly angered Liu Qingyi. Ye Peng was gloating on the side. Ran Entertainment was an industry under Gu Junqing's name. Since they were so rude to Liu Qingyi now, she must certainly have an opinion of Gu Junqing. As long as there was enough conflict between the two, he did not believe they could spark any romantic feelings. Handle this for me. Otherwise, I guarantee you will never see my second sister again in this life. Liu Qingyi shifted her anger toward Gu Junqing, her voice cold. Chapter 1018. Do you see the attitude of your Gu family now? Liu Qingyi shifted her anger toward Gu Junqing, her voice icy. She had not treated Gu Junqing with such hostility even when he had treated her so aggressively earlier. Clearly, Ran Entertainment's threats against those around her had truly infuriated her. Gu Junqing felt a sense of helplessness. He knew that wherever the protagonist appeared, nothing good ever followed. Not only did the interruption ruin his intimate moment with Liu Qingyi, but it also brought out Ran Entertainment, which was now playing the role of a villain. Young Master Gu, I used to respect you, but what you are doing now is truly excessive. How can you threaten Sister Liu like this? Ye Peng stood by, feigning righteousness while condemning him, though he was gloating internally. Does this have anything to do with you? Gu Junqing did not indulge him, turning his head to speak with an indifferent expression. Ye Peng felt a shiver run through him upon seeing Gu Junqing's gaze. Gu Junqing's calm, cold expression and uncurved lips felt like a freezing blade grazing his neck, terrifying and oppressive. It was an indescribable sense of horror, silently sweeping over him, causing his mind and body to tremble uncontrollably. It felt as if a great terror or disaster were rushing toward him, yet all he saw was Gu Junqing's majestic, frigid gaze, treating all living beings like mere dirt. Ye Peng felt his heart plunge into an icy abyss, and cold sweat dripped instantly from his forehead. He realized he had made a grave mistake. His beauty as a woman was undeniably stunning, earning him a massive following of simps online. Even knowing he was a man, he was filled with self-satisfaction. He believed that all men in the world would bow before his beauty when cross-dressing. This mindset had made him far too casual when facing figures of Gu Junqing and Dao Tianyan's caliber. He had even believed he could play them both in the palm of his hand. He assumed that no matter what he did, they would not harm him. But now seeing Gu Junqing's cold indifference, he knew he was wrong, utterly wrong. If it were not for Liu Qingyi's presence, he felt as if Gu Junqing might have killed him on the spot. It was a feeling of extreme malice. It was terrifying, chilling, and yet incredibly real. Enough, this truly has nothing to do with you. And you, why are you bullying a girl? Liu Qingyi had not seen Gu Junqing's gaze, but she could sense the fear in Ye Peng, and the frozen atmosphere between them, so she quickly stepped in to smooth things over. Ye Peng immediately shut his mouth, silently lowering his head and not daring to meet Gu Junqing's eyes. Ha! Gu Junqing let out a light laugh that might have been mocking, causing Ye Peng's bowed face to twist in anger. Ever since Ye Peng obtained his cross-dressing system, he had received nothing but adoration and cheers. He had never suffered such humiliation before. He vowed to get his revenge, swearing that one day he would make Gu Junqing kneel before his skirt and lick his feet. Gu Junqing could not be bothered to pay further attention to Ye Peng, who was merely a fresh stock of leeks to him. If not for the fact that he still had some small use, he would have finished harvesting him long ago. Now that this stock of leeks was annoying him and daring to jump around, he was simply asking for death. Chapter 1019. Gu Junqing withdrew his gaze only after seeing Ye Peng lower his head. He could not care less if Ye Peng harbored any resentment toward him, as protagonists and villains were natural enemies destined for a life or death struggle. He only allowed Ye Peng to continue jumping around because the man still had some utility. Otherwise, dealing with a protagonist like Ye Peng would be far too easy. He could simply expose the man's identity as a crossdresser to the public eye. Ye Peng's behavior of deceiving the masses by crossdressing to solicit such massive amounts of money was enough to land him in prison for a few years. Furthermore, exposing his identity would surely leave Liu Qingyi disappointed and even disgusted with him. However, doing so would inevitably deepen Liu Qingyi's aversion to men. Therefore, unless absolutely necessary, he did not intend to expose Ye Peng's identity so easily. Not to mention, Ye Peng was one of his tools to deal with Dao Tianyan. Liu Qingyi did not notice the undercurrents flowing between the two men. She only noticed that Ye Peng's mood seemed off, so she assumed Gu Junqing was bullying a girl. You should not blame others for speaking up when you did it yourself. Liu Qingyi said this with a hint of reproach, then rolled her eyes at Gu Junqing and tossed the phone to him. You had better find a way to resolve this matter first. Compared to Ye Peng, the child of fortune, Gu Junqing naturally treated Liu Qingyi, the heroine, differently. His life or death struggle with the male lead was ultimately about competing interests, including wealth, luck, strength, opportunities, and heroines. The heroine was not his enemy, but a prize to be won. Therefore, when interacting with the heroines, he usually carefully managed their dynamic. Sometimes he played the role of an older brother, sometimes a younger brother, and at other times, he even acted as their father. Is solving this not easy? Gu Junqing shook his head at Liu Qingyi. He then said earnestly, however, third sister, I still want to advise you. In today's entertainment industry, capital is king. You are still operating like a workshop. Even with you as a top-tier celebrity holding things up, you are planning to semi-retire. Within a few years, you will be left behind, facing a situation where you have no successors and struggle to get ahead. Why don't you consider joining my camp? Ye Peng, who did not dare to interrupt and could only fantasize about how Gu Junqing would fawn over him in the future, moved his lips upon hearing this. He wanted to say that he could actually take over Liu Qingyi's position. With the system, why would he fear not becoming popular? If it were not for the fear of his cross-dressing identity being exposed, he would have already joined the entertainment industry and exploded in popularity. However, Gu Junqing's earlier look still made Ye Peng's spine chill, so he kept his mouth shut and listened quietly to their conversation. Not only will you have broader resources, but you will also have people behind you to protect your interests. After all, a team and studio like yours need to make a living. Even if there are no successors and no work, I can still afford to support them. Gu Junqing's earnest invitation made Liu Qingyi's mood improve slightly, and she spoke indifferently. But you cannot let them go without work forever. These employees of yours must have passed great tests to stay with you, and their abilities do not lose out to those under the giants. After you retire, the transition period will likely be quite long. Do you not consider your employees? Chapter 1020. Don't you consider your employees? Gu Junqing's words plunged Liu Qingyi into deep thought. Honestly, she had never considered merging her personal studio into someone else's company before. But the situation is different now, and she must withdraw from the entertainment industry to live with her sisters, making herself disappear from the public eye. Otherwise, whether it is due to being too busy or the enthusiasm of her fans, it would cause great trouble for her sisters. Having been at the center of public opinion, she does not want her sisters to receive that kind of attention. Therefore, exiting the entertainment industry and removing herself from that volatile position is imperative. However, her studio is almost entirely supported by her alone, as it was created to serve only her. If she retires, the employees in her studio will inevitably fall into a state of unemployment or semi-unemployment. Every employee remaining now has withstood unimaginable temptations to stay. With dozens of people in the studio relying on her for their livelihood, she has a responsibility toward them. Even if she is willing to support them, the entertainment industry changes rapidly. One moment you are a top star, the next you could become irrelevant, and falling a step behind means falling behind in everything. She does not want to waste her employees' valuable time. In fact, her main concern is that her studio might have no successors. Besides Ye Peng, she interviewed several seemingly good female artists, but none met her requirements. Even with Ye Peng, an artist with both talent and beauty, she is not certain he will definitely succeed. After all, Ye Peng's current fame is only relatively popular in the streaming circle. She is actually gambling, betting that Ye Peng's future will be bright so that she can safely hand over the studio to him and provide an explanation to her employees. She has heard of Anran Entertainment, a giant in the industry with a complete industrial chain and abundant entertainment resources. It boasts numerous star artists and thousands of employees, including artists and managers, and is rumored to have strong capital backing. Its background was mysterious, with many media outlets secretly speculating it was an industry under some large family. But when Gu Junqing said it was his family's property, she suddenly understood. It can be said that if she really joins Anran Entertainment, and they are willing to support her employees, it would be very simple for her studio to continue. Possessing resources that can run rampant in the entertainment industry means even supporting a pig could make it famous. The key is that this is still Gu Junqing's property. If we choose to cooperate with you, what conditions can you offer? I will not agree to the conditions offered now. Liu Qingyi thought for a moment before responding lightly. Gu Junqing smiled and spoke eloquently. All arrangements are decided by you. The company's resources, such as which popular shows or concerts you want to attend, you can deploy at will, and we only take 50% of the income. Liu Qingyi felt moved by his words. The reason she chose to run an independent studio in the first place was that she detested the dark clauses and lack of freedom. It was almost as if the company told you to do something, you had to do it. Not only did she have no autonomy, but some companies would also make female stars accompany big shots. Their methods and thinking were extremely low and dirty. Chapter 1021. All arrangements will be decided by you. The company's resources, such as popular shows or concerts, are yours to deploy at will, and we only require 50% of the revenue. Gu Junqing smiled, laying out his terms with ease. Ye Peng was stifled, desperate to make Liu Qingyi trust him. He understood Liu Qingyi's hesitations, yet he believed in his own future success. He felt he could eventually take over Liu Qingyi's position, without ever needing to join Gu Junqing's faction. He had no desire to work for him. However, having just joined Liu Qingyi's studio, he lacked any real influence or trust. With the intimidating weight of Gu Junqing's earlier gaze still fresh, he could only stand silently to the side as they negotiated. Are you certain we will possess total autonomy? Liu Qingyi asked again, confirming the point. Of course. You know my character, third sister. When I, Gu Junqing, give my word, it holds weight. Gu Junqing chuckled, projecting an image of high moral standing. Liu Qingyi's red lips curled slightly. She could not fathom where this man found the confidence, as she simply did not believe in his moral standing at all. 50% is not enough. I want 70%, and you must cover all wages and expenses for my studio's staff. Liu Qingyi's gaze shifted as she made her counteroffer. Gu Junqing wanted to agree immediately, as he invited Liu Qingyi not for profit, but to control Ye Peng's actions. Of course, having her join held nothing but benefits for him. Liu Qingyi's positive public image would significantly boost the reputation of the Gu family. Given the sheer scale of the Gu family's influence, maintaining a pristine public persona was essential. That recent call from Anran Entertainment, with its coercive tone, had only been tolerated because Liu Qingyi possessed a calm temper, and because of her connection to him. Anyone else would have harbored deep resentment. Yet, such friction was an inevitable trend of capital expansion. To clear obstacles, one had to swallow what was beneficial, making the offense of others inevitable. In the end, interest was what mattered most. Gu Junqing looked at Liu Qingyi, a thought suddenly crossing his mind. Her conditions were harsh. Not only did she want total control over resources, but she also demanded he support her staff, leaving him with only 30% of the revenue. It was as if he were knowingly raising another man's son while acknowledging it was not his own. Anyone else would have balked at such an obvious loss-making arrangement. If he accepted too readily, Liu Qingyi would naturally suspect he had ulterior motives. I cannot agree to these terms, Gu Junqing said, feigning difficulty. Third sister, tell me, who is the boss here, you or me? I cannot agree to this unless. Unless what? Liu Qingyi asked, confused. Unless you become the boss's wife. Gu Junqing blinked. Get lost. Liu Qingyi had been focusing intently on his conditions, hoping he had no ulterior motives. Hearing that demand, she could not help but roll her eyes. She really should not have held any expectations for this man. Chapter 1022. Unless you become the boss's wife. Get lost. Liu Qingyi had been focusing intently on hearing Gu Junqing's terms. She thought that proposing conditions meant Gu Junqing did not have any ulterior motives. However, upon hearing this improper request, she could not help but roll her eyes. She really should not have held any expectations for the man in front of her. Is that so? Have you really not considered it? Gu Junqing looked at Liu Qingyi's cheeks, which shone with the luster of a precious pearl and the glow of fine jade, and said with a light chuckle. Hearing their conversation, Ye Peng felt as if he were sitting on needles and pins, his back prickling, as if ants were crawling all over him. His body trembled uncontrollably, and his face looked extremely ugly. Witnessing the woman he dreamed of flirting with another man would make anyone feel like vomiting blood. Even though he knew this was not the time to provoke Gu Junqing, he could not help but interject. Young Master Gu, you must be joking. I heard that you have a very good relationship with Sister Liu's second sister, and your relationship with Sister Liu's seventh sister is also quite good. You must be joking with Sister Liu. Ye Peng deliberately said this with a joking tone. However, the meaning behind his words was already very obvious. He was secretly signaling that he knew many things about Gu Junqing, warning him not to make a move on Liu Qingyi, or he would tell her about Gu Junqing cheating on 2 boats. Moreover, these 2 boats were Liu Qingyi's own sisters, so he did not believe Gu Junqing would not care about this being discovered by her. He dares to threaten me. Gu Junqing found this somewhat amusing. He was not surprised by how Ye Peng knew about this. After all, Dao Tianyan knew about this matter, and hated him deeply because he had slept with the 7th sister Dao Tianyan longed for. As Dao Tianyan's girlfriend, if he wanted to know these things, Dao Tianyan might well have told him about it. He just did not expect Ye Peng to dare to use this matter to threaten him. It seems the leeks are ready for harvesting. Gu Junqing narrowed his eyes, and a flash of danger flickered deep within them. Why haven't I heard about this? Liu Qingyi could not help but ask curiously upon hearing about her seventh sister. Of course you wouldn't know, your sisters have long been sent away by me for various reasons. Gu Junqing muttered inwardly. Seventh sister Xie Ying now has a home she cannot return to, fearing she will be arrested for eavesdropping on the fifth sister. Furthermore, he was not worried that Dao Tianyan would harass Xie Ying at school, because there was someone weighing half a ton at the school he had bribed, and as long as Dao Tianyan appeared on campus, she would cling to him tightly, and not let him escape. Also, the sixth sister and fifth sister were sent away by him for various reasons. This was to prevent the difficulty of conquering the other sisters from skyrocketing. After all, 3 women make a show, let alone these 7 sisters, who are connected in heart and soul. Therefore, only by temporarily separating them could he have enough time to conquer them. Of course, it was impossible for him to tell Liu Qingyi these things. Did the second sister not tell you? My relationship with Yushin is very good. Gu Junqing blinked and said, very good indeed. They have even slept together. Ye Peng muttered in his heart. As Dao Tianyan's most intimate girlfriend aside from his sisters, he naturally gained his deep trust, and Dao Tianyan even told him everything about some of the sisters. Chapter 1023. Ye Peng exhaled in relief, noticing Gu Junqing's momentary silence after mentioning the seventh sister. He felt certain he had gained leverage over Gu Junqing, preventing him from making any reckless moves toward Liu Qingyi. Still, he could not afford to be careless. He kept a watchful eye on both of them, ready to interrupt if they steered the conversation into dangerous territory. He would not let Gu Junqing win Liu Qingyi's heart. You are on good terms with my seventh sister. Liu Qingyi looked at Gu Junqing with skepticism. She had never heard of such a thing, and the young girl had never mentioned it during their usual chats. She suspected someone was keeping something from her. Let us discuss those matters later. Are we not currently negotiating the merger? Gu Junqing said with a trace of helplessness. Perhaps the sisters had been told since childhood that they might share the same husband in the future. Consequently, they were not as resistant to the idea of sharing a man as other women might be. This was also due to the unbreakable bond between the 7 sisters. Liu Qingyi, however, was different. Her androphobia and extreme distrust of men meant that many things had to be kept from her for now. Fine. Liu Qingyi remained suspicious but chose not to dwell on it. You said you did not agree with the 70-30 split just now. What percentage do you want? Liu Qingyi tapped her slender fingers against the desk, her expression indifferent as she asked the question. Her terms were quite harsh. Generally, an artist only keeps between 30 and 50% of their income, with the company taking at least 50%. Requesting 70% was on the high side, but she had her reasons. The value her reputation brought to Gu Junqing extended far beyond mere performance fees. There were sponsorships and partnerships to consider. Furthermore, Gu Junqing wanted her endorsements, so while 70% was a lot, it was not completely unreasonable. Everyone knew she almost never accepted endorsements or promotional deals. She would not sacrifice her public image if not for the favor she owed Gu Junqing. A 70-30 split is a bit steep. However, I am not saying I cannot agree to it. But third sister, you must grant me one request. Gu Junqing said with a smile. What a request? If it is anything like that boss's wife nonsense from before, do not even bother. Liu Qingyi rolled her eyes. Clearly, she was still speechless about his earlier comments. No, it is simply that if I send people over, I hope you will personally mentor them. Gu Junqing waved his hand, his serious expression suggesting he was not joking. Send people over. You just said I would have complete autonomy. Liu Qingyi's brows furrowed, and she looked ready to lose her temper. I am not talking about management personnel, but artists. I know you intend to move behind the scenes and stop performing publicly. Gu Junqing gestured toward Ye Peng and continued his explanation. You are planning to mentor artists like Miss Ye here. Therefore, I would like you to help me mentor a few artists. Gu Junqing's words gave Liu Qingyi pause for thought. She looked at Gu Junqing with a hint of suspicion. Since when have you been so concerned about others? Are you trying to make me raise some mistresses for you? Gu Junqing was momentarily speechless. Chapter 1024. Since when do you care so much about entertainment industry matters, and you even want me to train people for you? Are you planning to have me help you raise a mistress? Or are you planning to sleep with some female star, and her requirement is for me to train her? Liu Qingyi speculated suspiciously. Gu Junqing found himself momentarily speechless at her words. He did, in fact, have exactly that intention. While in Luodu, he encountered a major celebrity heroine named So Ran. Although her reputation was not quite up to Liu Qingyi's level, her popularity was still quite high. Her talent, naturally, went without saying. As a heroine, her talent and appearance absolutely met Liu Qingyi's high standards for selection. In fact, Ran Entertainment was originally established by Gu Junqing specifically for So Ran. Unexpectedly, it had now become his bridgehead for entering the entertainment industry. However, he was not about to admit to something like that at this moment. Gu Junqing opened his eyes wide. How can you slander my innocence out of thin air? In your heart, am I the kind of person who would make his main wife raise his mistress? Pa, who is your main wife? Liu Qingyi spat lightly, though she did not continue to dwell on the matter. It was merely a casual guess on her part to begin with. Ye Peng watched helplessly as Liu Qingyi was manipulated by Gu Junqing, but there was nothing he could do. He had already taken a great risk by speaking up earlier, and if he exposed Gu Junqing again now, it would truly be a battle to the death. I can accept your request, but you also know my standards. If they do not meet my requirements, it is impossible for me to waste my own resources forcing them to succeed. After pondering for a moment, Liu Qingyi did not refuse Gu Junqing's request and agreed. Well, that goes without saying. If they do not meet your standards, third sister, I would not recommend them to you. The people I introduce will at least be on par with Miss Ye here in terms of ability. Gu Junqing glanced at Ye Peng, pausing specifically on the word miss with a smirk. However, Liu Qingyi did not notice the implication, and looked at Gu Junqing with pleasant surprise. She had seen countless artists who claimed to have ability and talent, but very few had the capability to take over her team. After searching for so long, only Ye Peng's talent and appearance met her requirements. Seeing that Gu Junqing claimed there was someone not inferior to Ye Peng, she could not help but feel a flicker of interest. What is the name of the person you are talking about? Ye Peng felt a shiver run through him upon hearing this, realizing this was Gu Junqing's counterattack for his earlier actions. It was meant to steal away the attention and expectations Liu Qingyi had for him. Liu Qingyi's expectations were the guarantee that he could turn the situation around and stand out. Without this expectation, given that he had deceived Liu Qingyi by not telling her about his cross-dressing, he would have absolutely no chance of winning her over. Therefore, he did not intend to sit and wait for his demise. Young Master Gu is joking. Ye Peng feigned a seductive posture, covering his mouth and laughing. Oh, Gu Junqing raised an eyebrow slightly. Although my achievements are not worth mentioning, and there are many seniors in the industry who surpass me, I believe there are very few in the new generation who can compare to me. Ye Peng smiled slightly, tossed his hair, and revealed a confident smile, allowing others to feel the pride in his heart. Liu Qingyi nodded. Ye Peng's potential was indeed good, having carved out his own path at such a young age. Although it was only in the direction of streaming, all roads lead to the same destination. Since he could become famous in the streaming circle, with Ye Peng's talent, he might well be able to carve out his own space in the entertainment industry. Chapter 1025. Gu Junqing smiled faintly when he saw the suspicion in Liu Qingyi's eyes. He did not care about Ye Peng's words, as in his eyes, Ye Peng was nothing more than a clown. He cared far more about Liu Qingyi's opinion. He stared into Liu Qingyi's eyes and asked calmly, "Third sister, do you know So Anran?" So Anran? Are you talking about So Anran, who has recently risen to fame? Liu Qingyi asked in surprise. Wait, I heard So Anran is at Anran Entertainment. Anran. Liu Qingyi paused to think for a second, then said with a playful smile, "Why is your company named after someone else? Are you sure this isn't just you trying to get me to train a mistress for you? That is only because she is the face of our company. Although we have recently signed quite a few famous artists, we naturally put all our care into Anran, as she is a singer we cultivated completely from scratch. Of course, if you were to join us, I would rename it Qingyi Entertainment immediately," Gu Junqing said without changing his expression. Changing the name was impossible. It would never happen in this lifetime. He knew Liu Qingyi's character well enough to know she would never dwell on such a detail. Ew, I don't want that. Liu Qingyi looked at Gu Junqing with disdain and snorted softly. Can you really get So Anran to come here? Liu Qingyi feigned indifference, asking with a slightly unnatural attitude as if it were just a casual question. It was no wonder Liu Qingyi was so excited inside. She had heard of So Anran's reputation. She was a singer who had risen rapidly in reputation and status recently, currently ranking between first and second tier. Originally, she was just an obscure third-rate, or even non-rated, singer. However, she had successfully reached the top during a talent show with a high-quality song. From then on, she became famous overnight. Alongside the Anran Entertainment behind her, she quickly occupied a place in the star-studded music and entertainment industry. Many musicians felt she was simply propped up by the big capital of Anran Entertainment. But Liu Qingyi had carefully studied So Anran and found that her talent and aptitude were far too high to be stopped at just the first-tier level. Had she not debuted so late, So Anran's achievements might not have been much lower than her own. Liu Qingyi's achievements in the entertainment industry were already a monumental legacy, as her moving and profound works were household names, which was why she never bothered with hype or chasing traffic. Yet, she still wanted to leave behind another legend in the entertainment and music industry. For instance, mentoring a queen-level figure who would not be inferior to her near the end of her own era. This would be a beautiful story regardless of where it happened. However, So Anran had already become famous, and she did not know if the other party would be willing to take over her position, so she had never contacted her. But now, after hearing what Gu Junqing said, she could not help but feel tempted. Compared to the uncertainty of Ye Peng, someone like So Anran, who already had a place in the music industry, was clearly more suitable for this task. Of course, if So Anran agreed, she would still mentor Ye Peng, but naturally, she could no longer pour all her hopes into him as she had planned. Ye Peng felt a slight shock in his heart, and his complexion gradually turned ugly. He was not a frog at the bottom of a well, and he was naturally familiar with the name So Anran. Therefore, he profoundly understood how much of an impact this name would have on him. Chapter 1026. Ye Peng felt a slight shock in his heart, and his complexion gradually turned ugly. He was not a man ignorant of the world, and he was naturally familiar with the weight of the name So Anran. She was an artist who had risen to fame rapidly recently, with a growth rate not inferior to that of Liu Qingyi in her early days. She possessed perfect looks, excellent qualities, and outstanding talent. Coupled with the support of a behemoth like Anran Entertainment, she gained a huge group of loyal fans in a short time. In the future, So Anran was the most likely female singer to reach Liu Qingyi's achievements, and she was even praised by the media as the successor to the queen. Therefore, he profoundly understood how much of an impact this name would have on his future plans. If Gu Junqing could really get So Anran to let Liu Qingyi mentor her, that would be his greatest rival. It was not that he was afraid, because no matter how excellent that female star named So Anran was, she certainly could not compare to him, a system user. The system could grant him infinite possibilities. However, the arrival of So Anran would inevitably divert much of Liu Qingyi's attention. This made Ye Peng somewhat unable to accept it. His body had finally improved slightly because of Liu Qingyi's presence, avoiding total impotence, and his sexual orientation had not completely changed yet. Moreover, there had always been a feeling in his heart, an intuition that he was in an extremely dangerous situation, as if he were being watched by a natural predator, where everything he did was calculated by others. It felt as if he were standing on the edge of a deep abyss, where a single careless step would send him falling into the abyss with no bones left. And Liu Qingyi was his lifeline. He vaguely felt that as long as he could win Liu Qingyi's heart, many problems could be solved and dangers could be turned into good fortune. Previously, he could not get close to Liu Qingyi at all. In his heart, Liu Qingyi was like a noble and elegant goddess, beautiful, holy, and perfect, giving people a feeling that she was high above and unattainable. But now that he could contact Liu Qingyi, his desire to possess her became increasingly intense. Therefore, Gu Junqing's actions had already encroached upon his fundamental interests. But he could not stop it, because he was only a successor favored by Liu Qingyi right now, equivalent to a crown prince who had not yet ascended the throne. Although he was valued and paid attention to by the emperor, it was still difficult to influence major decisions. Gu Junqing's naked open scheme also made Ye Peng feel extremely suffocated. Can you really call So Anran over? Liu Qingyi asked again. Of course, I have already communicated with her. She also respects you as a senior in the music industry. As long as you are willing, she is willing to honor you as a senior on every platform in the future. And I will let the company operate a little more. The title of master and apprentice is easy to arrange. Gu Junqing chuckled. Of course, this was assuming Liu Qingyi had not yet become his woman. If So Anran knew that Liu Qingyi might very well become Gu Junqing's woman in the future, that would be another matter. That is truly great. As long as she is willing, I will also help her with all my heart. Liu Qingyi also could not hide her surprise. Actually, one's status in the entertainment industry never depends on seniority, but on your ability to acquire resources. And the energy and connections of Liu Qingyi, this national treasure level queen, naturally go without saying. Liu Qingyi's concerts could be described as packed every time. Even quite a few law enforcement officers would stake out Liu Qingyi's concerts, and quite a few fugitives were arrested because of this. But even so, there were still quite a few fugitives who would take risks to watch a concert. As for connections, actually, just talking about the paths and abilities of her 7 sisters was enough to shock people. Therefore, as long as Liu Qingyi was willing, the speed at which she pushed resources would not necessarily lose to some big platforms. Of course, giants like Anran Entertainment were different. It would not mess with you openly, but would restrict you in all sorts of dark ways. Therefore, unless it was a last resort, even Liu Qingyi would not rashly offend any capital platform. As Liu Qingyi spoke, she suddenly glanced at Ye Peng, who looked somewhat embarrassed, and then she coughed lightly and calmed down. She had already promised Ye Peng that she would do her best to help him grow, but now she was excitedly talking about helping someone else in front of Ye Peng. She did not know why, but she suddenly felt a sense of being a scumbag. It was that after having a better choice, she would subconsciously ignore others. Liu Qingyi's bright eyes suddenly glanced at Gu Junqing meaningfully, and she muttered to herself in her heart, "Did this bastard scumbag usually act this scummy?" Chapter 1027. Don't worry, I will mentor you both together. Seeing Ye Peng's restlessness, Liu Qingyi offered a comforting word. So Anran was already rising in fame, and possessed the foundation to become a diva. Mentoring her would not be difficult, but she had already made a promise to Ye Peng, and would not abandon him now. She also genuinely appreciated Ye Peng's talent. Furthermore, he was Dao Tianyan's partner, her brother-in-law, and she could not afford to lose face. All right. Ye Peng forced a stiff smile. Liu Qingyi nodded, satisfied with his response, and turned to discuss the merger with Gu Junqing. She had previously hesitated to join Gu Junqing's Anran Entertainment, but the prospect of including So Anran changed her mind. Ye Peng watched them converse about So Anran. He could not help but feel jealous of a woman who had not even arrived yet, but already commanded so much of Liu Qingyi's attention. What would his position be once she arrived? A dark thought about eliminating So Anran to regain Liu Qingyi's focus flickered through his mind. Suddenly, he was shocked by his own impulse. How could he have such a sinister idea, when he was not that kind of person? Ye Peng quickly suppressed the thought and cursed himself for becoming so unscrupulous. He should not involve an innocent person, as he ought to target the man in front of him instead. He shot a hateful glance at Gu Junqing, who remained busy discussing the merger with Liu Qingyi. Ding. The host caused Ye Peng's mental state to deteriorate. Reward: 2,000 villain points, 500 fate value, 500 villain fate. Gu Junqing detected the malice and received the system notification. His thin, cold lips curled into a slight smile. His task was to nurture the negative emotions of these protagonists until they consumed their inherent kindness. He aimed to make them hysterical and unscrupulous, which was the only way to harvest them. Liu Qingyi remained oblivious to the tension between them. She was already busy imagining how the media would praise her for producing two divas from one studio. Although she seemed indifferent to fame, she deep down desired a good reputation. This was not a moral failing. She did not believe pursuing a good name was wrong, so long as she remained true to her heart. This was why she loved being the center of attention on stage. She hoped to leave behind a timeless legend as her music career drew to a close. You have said a lot, but can you actually speak for your family? What if they disagree, as the people in the Gu clan are notoriously arrogant? She interrupted her train of thought and asked with doubt. She understood the power struggles and factionalism within large clans. Even as the heir, Gu Junqing might not have authority over the other factions. Chapter 1028. You have said a lot, but can you actually speak for your family? What if they disagree, as the people in the Gu clan are notoriously arrogant? Liu Qingyi interrupted her own train of thought, and she asked with a suspicious, cold snort. The woman who had just been on the phone was so rude, showing how determined she was to acquire the studio. Now, she had only agreed to cooperate with Gu Junqing. She worried that the person in charge of Anran Entertainment would not simply obey him. According to Gu Junqing's explanation, Anran Entertainment was controlled by members of the Gu family, but only his distant cousins. She worried they might agree on the surface, while secretly creating obstacles. She had suffered from such tactics years ago when she was just starting out. They had acted as if they had reached an agreement, only to block her performances behind her back, teaching her a harsh lesson at that time. Facing Liu Qingyi's suspicion, Gu Junqing froze for a moment, then shook his head with a laugh. What are you laughing at? Liu Qingyi wrinkled her delicate nose, clearly dissatisfied with his mocking laughter. Do not worry about this, third sister. If you are still uneasy, you can call her again, and let me speak to her. Gu Junqing said with a smile, his eyes shining like stars. Fine. As long as you are certain you have authority in your family, go ahead. But do not speak yet. Liu Qingyi nodded, a mysterious look appearing in her eyes. Understood. Gu Junqing nodded in agreement, whether he understood her intentions or not. Liu Qingyi dialed the number for the head of Anran Entertainment again, and the voice that had angered her earlier rang out once more. Liu Qingyi, what is wrong with you? You refuse to sell me your studio, so why do you keep calling to harass me? The voice on the other end was still extremely impatient. Her name was Gu Yuren, a distant relative of the Gu family. Liu Qingyi was the most difficult person she had ever had to deal with, and she had slowed down her expansion in the entertainment industry. The Gu family had been expanding numerous industries recently, and each one had specific performance metrics. As long as she failed to meet those metrics, she risked being removed from her position. She had finally managed to seize this power, and she did not want to hand it over so easily. Although Anran Entertainment was not huge in the context of the current Gu family, it served as their bridgehead in the entertainment industry. Therefore, it received more support than any other sector. Since she was responsible for the entertainment industry, the profits were naturally extremely generous. Of course, while she was busy lining her pockets, she still firmly executed the tasks assigned by the family. That was why she was so impatient with Liu Qingyi, this tough nut to crack. She was just a singer, and although she had high popularity, it was impossible for her to compete against them. Everyone knew that Anran Entertainment was a giant in the industry, and it was backed by the Gu family of Luodu, a behemoth beyond imagination. Whenever she went out and stated her identity, everyone gave her a measure of respect. Yet, Liu Qingyi alone refused to give her any face, despite multiple requests to acquire her studio. She did not necessarily have to bring Liu Qingyi under her wing. However, if she could bring Liu Qingyi into the fold, the company would further monopolize the entertainment and music industry, and her performance records would look even better. She never expected Liu Qingyi to ignore her requirements entirely. With no other choice, she had to use both soft and hard tactics, continuing to persuade her on the surface, while secretly using the company's power to suppress her. Chapter 1029. Liu Qingyi's persistence left Gu Yuren entirely helpless. Having no other options, she resorted to using both soft and hard tactics. She continued to persuade her on the surface, while secretly using the company's power to suppress her, hoping to force Liu Qingyi into submission. Yet, the other party remained completely unmoved. Even though she had blocked many of the other party's channels, Liu Qingyi had been famous for a long time, and held a very high status in the industry. The most critical factor was that the audience supported her, and she possessed absolutely no stains on her reputation. Otherwise, she could have used her scandals to destroy her reputation. Unfortunately, she had scoured through all the available information on Liu Qingyi since her debut, and even hired private investigators to review her life. She had to admit that her private life was terrifyingly clean. Many celebrities with great fame were destroyed by their private lives. Some were involved in prostitution, others in group activities, and some engaged in violence. She even knew an A-list actress in the industry who had slept with everyone from program staff and cameramen to lighting technicians, assistant directors, and lead directors before she had even come of age. This was the only way she had finally obtained so many resources. These matters were not secrets to someone at her level. Yet, To her surprise, she could not find a single flaw in Liu Qingyi that could bring her down since her debut. Whether in her private life or her work, she had never been close to any man, nor had she ever engaged in any fake romances or publicity stunts. She was as clean as if she had been living in seclusion within the divat of the entertainment industry. Yet, a person like this could achieve an unimaginably high level of fame and success. Even Gu Junqing felt a certain admiration for her. In her life, she had never admired anyone except for the figure who led the Gu family from a regional clan to their current prominent status. Moreover, she had hired many professional experts to evaluate and study the situation. If she truly wanted to ban Liu Qingyi across the entire internet, it would be extremely difficult even for her and Ran Entertainment to achieve. Besides, she wanted to acquire Liu Qingyi to expand her power and consolidate resources in the entertainment industry. Whether she should engage in a life-or-death conflict with Liu Qingyi was still under consideration. For the time being, integrating the resources of the entertainment industry seemed truly difficult. This gave Gu Junqing a headache. Liu Qingyi was truly immune to both soft and hard tactics. She was a representative of the capital whom celebrities in the circle feared deeply. Who in the entire industry would dare not show her respect after a single word from her? However, Liu Qingyi dared to do exactly that. Because she had no way to deal with the person for the time being, Gu Junqing felt somewhat stifled. As for seeking help from the family, that was even more impossible. If she sought help from the family for such a small matter, she should just quit and go back to being a noble lady. Who in the family did not want to earn the appreciation of that person? Therefore, no matter what she did, she had to do everything in her power to complete the blueprint for the future of the Gu family. Liu Qingyi, do you have some kind of problem? You refused my acquisition offer, so why do you keep calling to harass me? Gu Junqing snorted coldly and replied without any courtesy. Liu Qingyi glanced at Gu Junqing and snorted softly. Now that she knew about the familial relationship between Gu Junqing and Gu Junqing, she was not overly angry. General Manager Gu, when you talk about an acquisition, you really must talk about the terms first. Chapter 1030. Manager Gu, if you want to talk about an acquisition, you really should talk about terms first, Liu Qingyi said indifferently. I believe I have already had someone communicate with you. Since you ask again, I can tell you once more. We split all performance revenue 60-40, me 60 and you 40. However, all employees in your studio must also accept assignments by the company. Correspondingly, company resources will be tilted toward you. Believe us, with the resources of our Ran Entertainment, we will push you to even higher peaks, Gu Junqing said temptingly, seeing that Liu Qingyi seemed moved. This offer was not even comparable to the conditions Gu Junqing had already opened. Not only was the profit distribution vastly different, but there was also no autonomy to speak of. However, Gu Junqing did not know that Gu Junqing had already promised Liu Qingyi much better conditions. Of course, if this offer from Gu Junqing were given to any other artist, they would have scrambled to accept it. Simply being able to enter Ran Entertainment was a condition that made people flock to it. For a large company like Ran Entertainment, which possessed rich resources and channels, it was the simplest thing in the world to push an artist to the top. They just needed to appear on a few shows to become a familiar face. Then, through various promotional activities to establish a perfect persona, they would be famous enough. A faint smile appeared on Liu Qingyi's gorgeous face, which was like the moon in the sky. If she still wanted to make a splash in the music industry, these terms from Ran Entertainment would indeed be quite good. But she was already tired. What she wanted to do most now was to mentor the next generation, so that her sudden retirement would not become a regret in the hearts of her fans. Moreover, she wanted to leave behind a diva who possessed real substance, not one propped up purely by others. This was the reason she wanted to ensure she had sufficient autonomy. Otherwise, judging by the current methods and attitude of Ran Entertainment in manufacturing traffic stars in batches, whether it was her or the next generation, appearing on shows, hyping up popularity, and forced romances would become the norm. They would only become hollow, short-lived traffic stars who were not authentic. She would also become a symbol for Ran Entertainment to grab eyeballs. This was completely different from the diva she envisioned, one who was enduring, supported by a large body of work, and whose character could not be criticized. So, she did not want her successor to become such a character. Profit distribution can be discussed. However, I have always emphasized that I need to possess complete autonomy. The programs my artists appear on must also be approved by me. Otherwise, there is no need to talk about cooperation, Liu Qingyi said indifferently. Gu Junqing, standing to the side, was about to say something. But Liu Qingyi glanced lightly at Gu Junqing, signaling him not to speak. She saw that Gu Junqing's expression showed he did not know what kind of attitude the Gu family projected to the outside world. Therefore, she wanted to let Gu Junqing see clearly just how arrogant and domineering his Gu family members were. Heh, Miss Liu, you know this is completely impossible. I know you want to continue on your current path, wanting to train artists who are truly capable and virtuous, but the cost is too high. Do you think there are so many people like you who can carve out such a reputation solely by themselves, spending less than a decade? Gu Junqing sneered. Liu Qingyi's conditions were also very clear to her, but she could not accept this condition. She did not have so much time to wait for Liu Qingyi to cultivate virtuous and talented individuals. To her, relying on the advantages of capital to quickly integrate resources within the circle, form a monopoly in the entertainment industry, and produce various industrialized and scaled film, television, and music content was the path she had to take. This was the reason for the difference in opinion between her and Liu Qingyi. Chapter 1031. The reason the two could not reach an agreement lay in their conflicting views on the domestic entertainment industry. To Gu Yurin, the industry was nothing more than a tool for making money, much like buying and selling commodities. She pursued quick results, aiming to provide the most standardized experience to the public in the shortest amount of time. This was cost-effective and low risk. It was like placing them in a factory, where they were neatly polished and mass-produced. After all, making money was the bottom line. Liu Qingyi's perspective was completely different from Gu Yurin's. She believed that in the pursuit of fame and fortune within the entertainment industry, one must maintain their integrity, as hype and sensationalism were false. Only talent could determine everything. Of course, there was no right or wrong in their respective viewpoints. Gu Yurin's approach could certainly generate substantial profits. However, artists created through such an assembly line were devoid of personality. Under this trend, the audience's aesthetic taste would inevitably become fatigued and rigid. Gu Yurin did not care, as she viewed these artists as nothing more than money-making machines. In other words, when capital wanted to make someone famous, it did not consider long-term development. It only cared about short-term harvesting, while keeping the person firmly under its control. After all, she desired that one day, she would receive the attention of that noble figure from the Gu family, who was held in such high regard. As for Liu Qingyi's vision, while beautiful and perfect, it was far too unrealistic. Since ancient times, places of fame and fortune have always bred conflicts of the heart. The chaos in the entertainment industry was caused by many factors, but in general, it was driven by fame and fortune, stemming from the unscrupulous pursuit of these things. Of course, given her own growth experience, Liu Qingyi was naturally qualified to want to replicate her own path. However, capital figures like Gu Yurin did not believe there would ever be another Liu Qingyi, because it was too difficult, far too difficult. Liu Qingyi's current achievements required the perfect alignment of timing, geography, and human effort. Her inherent conditions, hard work, personality, aesthetics, creative ability, character, and background were all indispensable. Did others not want to replicate Liu Qingyi? Anyone in the industry knew just how difficult that truly was. This also meant that the conflict between Liu Qingyi and Gu Yurin was almost impossible to reconcile. It was a fundamental difference in consciousness, much like how ideals and reality were always at odds. If it were not for Gu Junqing, perhaps the two of them would never have collaborated in their entire lives. It was even possible they could have ended up in a life-or-death confrontation. Gu Junqing stood by, quietly watching the confrontation between Liu Qingyi and Gu Yurin, though he was not particularly surprised. Liu Qingyi was a heroine after all, and she would inevitably have conflicts with the villain, or the villain's family for various reasons. Gu Junqing was already accustomed to this. Fortunately, he was present right now, and the two only had temporary conflicts. Otherwise, if Liu Qingyi were to get into a life-or-death struggle with Gu Yurin, a member of the family's collateral branch, it would be much more troublesome. After all, provoking Liu Qingyi meant provoking more than just her. The seven sisters had always stood together, and they could even accept other sisters loving the same man without being jealous. Most people believed that jealousy was a woman's nature, a concept Gu Junqing felt deeply about. He had personally experienced several thrilling battlefields of romance. The affection between these seven women was deep enough to defy their own natures. It was easy to imagine that if one of the sisters was provoked, the others would be absolutely enraged and step in directly. The key was that each of these sisters carried immense heroine luck. Their individual abilities were also outstanding. If they truly joined forces against others, very few people or factions could withstand them. This served as a wake-up call for Gu Junqing. While accelerating his own development was important, the family still lacked a sense of vigilance. They often felt their development was rapid and invincible, believing no power in the world could stop the Gu family's growth. Consequently, their behavior had become unscrupulous, arrogant, and domineering. However, this was a drawback of developing too rapidly, as there had indeed been a long-term lack of restraint regarding discipline. It seems it is time for some reorganization, Gu Junqing thought silently to himself. Chapter 1032. Liu Qingyi, I have already shown you enough respect. You can go ask around the industry, as Anran Entertainment never offers such good terms to anyone else. Gu Yurin snorted coldly, seeing that she still could not persuade Liu Qingyi. But this is not what I want, so you are free to walk away from the negotiation. Liu Qingyi opened her soft, full lips slightly and spoke with indifference. Do you think I want to talk to you? If it were not for the fact that your fame can make money for me, do you think I would bother talking this much? Gu Yurin made no attempt to hide her intentions. In fact, she had initially intended to feign civility with Liu Qingyi, but her patience was now completely worn out. She even harbored thoughts that if she could not have her, she would destroy her. If Liu Qingyi insisted on opposing her, and she could not tame her, she would go to any lengths to suppress Liu Qingyi, or even attempt to blacklist her. Regardless, capturing Liu Qingyi was merely a small component of their massive plan to enter the entertainment industry. In the past, the status of Anran Entertainment had allowed Gu Yurin to command the industry, which had made her somewhat arrogant. Even knowing the complex and deep-seated background behind Liu Qingyi, she did not care. After all, she stood behind the Gu family. This gave her an innate sense of superiority, looking down on any force or individual in the entertainment industry. Stars and performers were merely money-making chess pieces in her hand. By the way, Liu Qingyi, do not think I cannot find your weaknesses. I heard you have been visiting private hospitals quite frequently lately, and you were seeing a psychologist for issues related to men and women. I wonder if your mysterious current boyfriend and your vast fan base know that our Miss Liu suffers from such an ailment. Gu Yuren did not wait for Liu Qingyi to respond, speaking slowly on her own. This was information she had painstakingly investigated. However, she felt this was merely hearsay that could not threaten Liu Qingyi. Even if this were made public, few would believe it. Moreover, even if some believed it, it would not have a significant impact on Liu Qingyi's reputation or image. Therefore, Gu Yuren brought this up without concern, using it to test whether Liu Qingyi actually cared about the matter. Just as Gu Yuren expected, after she uttered those two sentences, there was no sound from Liu Qingyi at all. Elsewhere, because Liu Qingyi was on speakerphone, Gu Yuren's words easily reached the ears of Gu Junqing and Ye Peng. Gu Junqing's expression did not change in the slightest, but Ye Peng's face shifted subtly. He had been sneering inwardly when he saw Liu Qingyi and Gu Yuren at an impasse. Although he could not establish a good relationship with Liu Qingyi for the moment, seeing the relationship between Gu Junqing and Liu Qingyi deteriorating naturally filled him with schadenfreude. But now, hearing these words from Gu Yuren, his heart was suddenly filled with stormy waves and disbelief. What did Gu Yuren mean by this? Was she suggesting that Goddess Liu had an issue with her orientation? Ye Peng felt terrified. For a fan who had chased after Liu Qingyi for several years, this news was like a bolt from the blue. At first, he subconsciously refused to believe Gu Yuren's statement. But when he saw the cold, freezing aura radiating from Liu Qingyi, he knew Gu Yuren was speaking the truth. Could it be that Goddess Liu really went to see a doctor because of an issue with her orientation? Chapter 1033. Gu Yuren's words sent shockwaves through Ye Peng's heart. He never expected that Liu Qingyi might actually suffer from a mental illness. Even as her diehard fan, he had been completely oblivious, to say nothing of the general public. This was simply unheard of news. Looking at the icy expression on Liu Qingyi's face, he felt that even this goddess had not expected to have her secrets held against her. Yet, even with Liu Qingyi hiding things so carefully, Gu Yuren had still found them. This made Ye Peng wary of Gu Yuren's investigative capabilities. The fact was that he possessed a massive secret of his own. He was actually a man. If this secret were discovered, he could forget about establishing a foothold in the entertainment industry, and even returning to his old job as a streamer would be a pipe dream. But upon remembering that his identity was modified and hidden by the system itself, Ye Peng set his worries aside. Unless he exposed his own identity, no one could uncover his past. Furthermore, unless there was excessive physical contact, he had no reason to worry about being discovered, thanks to the makeup and voice-changing techniques granted by the system. It could be said that everything he had now was bestowed upon him by his peerless cross-dressing system. Therefore, while he outwardly obeyed people of high status like Gu Junqing and Dao Tianyan, he always looked down on them from the depths of his heart. They were nothing but mere mortals, while he was a man who possessed a system. Even if he could only hide his true face with women's clothing for now, one day, he would make them all kneel at his feet. Peerless beauties like Liu Qingyi would eventually become his women. Chapter 1034. As Gu Yuren spoke, the three people in the office reacted quite differently. Ye Peng appeared stunned, but the hidden joy beneath his expression did not escape Gu Junqing's eyes. Gu Junqing let out a soft, mocking laugh. Even if Ye Peng knew about Liu Qingyi's condition, did he really think he stood a chance? He merely glanced at Ye Peng before turning his focus back to Liu Qingyi. In his eyes, Ye Peng was little more than a lamb waiting for the slaughter. He just needed to extract the last bit of value from him before he began his harvest. It might not even be necessary for him to do the work himself. A flash of light flickered in Gu Junqing's eyes, followed by a fleeting, enigmatic smile. When Liu Qingyi heard Gu Yuren's words, her icy, diamond-like eyes radiated a bitter chill. Her beautiful face remained as tranquil as a deep frozen ravine, cold as winter snow or moonlight over the sea. She had not expected Gu Yuren to be so persistent. Despite her careful concealment, she had been exposed. Had this private matter not been raised in front of Gu Junqing, she would have fought to the death. Liu Qingyi quickly swept her gaze across both men. She ignored Ye Peng, focusing instead on Gu Junqing. Seeing his lack of reaction, she realized he already knew about her potential psychological issues. Her second sister was siding with an outsider, and she could not believe she had told him this. Liu Qingyi grumbled to herself. She also had a vague suspicion. She finally understood why her second sister had asked Gu Junqing to accompany her. Perhaps her sister wanted Gu Junqing to help cure her androphobia. Thinking of this, her already sour mood grew even more complicated. Why are you silent, Liu Qingyi? Am I right, and you are feeling guilty? If you want me to keep this secret, agree to work with me, or else. Gu Yuren listened to the silence on the other end, hearing only the slightly quickened sound of Liu Qingyi's breathing. Sensing victory, she continued with confidence. She initially doubted this was enough to manipulate Liu Qingyi, as a famous diva would never have issues with men and women. Such matters were a taboo for any celebrity. However, the other party's reaction surprised her. This silence made it seem as if she had hit on a truth that could not be refuted. Gu Yuren naturally prepared to press her advantage. Of course, if you agree now, the previously promised conditions remain unchanged. You will still receive the highest quality resources from Enran Entertainment. Adhering to the principle of using both the stick and the carrot, Gu Yuren emphasized that Liu Qingyi's treatment would remain generous. You are so insane and overbearing, resorting to such despicable methods. If your subordinates are like this, I shudder to imagine what you are like. You handle this yourself, or do not think I will hesitate to strike just because she has you as a backer. To Gu Yurin's surprise, Liu Qingyi responded coldly with these cryptic words. Subordinates. Did she just call me a subordinate? Gu Yurin frowned, feeling puzzled. It seemed as if this message was directed not at her, but at someone else. Could there be someone else on the other end of the line? Chapter 1035. Liu Qingyi, did you go out and find some backers? Are you actually trying to strike back at me? Gu Yurin said with a hint of amusement. In her current position within the entertainment industry, she held the power of life and death over countless stars rising and falling. No one had ever threatened her like this before. This was to say nothing of the Gu family behind her, a towering clan standing tall across the entire Xia nation. Anran Entertainment alone was not something typical stars in the industry could contend with. Even Liu Qingyi was no exception. She had heard rumors that Liu Qingyi had someone behind her. After all, Liu Qingyi's career path since her debut had been too smooth. Whether it was performances or the promotional vetting for her song releases, everything was extremely rapid and explosive, with no obstacles ever appearing. Furthermore, having arrived at this prominent position, though she appeared glamorous, she was also subject to the harsh winds that destroy tall trees. She had faced endless targeting from countless people. For instance, there were the stars and marketing accounts on the internet that rose to fame by spreading rumors about Liu Qingyi. None of this caused her the slightest bit of impact. Instead, those who intentionally targeted Liu Qingyi ended up having extremely miserable fates. Some apologized, some were cyberbullied, and the most excessive ones were simply sent straight to prison. Even if Liu Qingyi herself claimed she had no backing, no one believed her. Even so, Gu Yurin, with her powerful confidence, still dismissed Liu Qingyi entirely. In her view, a performer was just a performer. Even if there was a mysterious force backing her, could it really compare to her Anran Entertainment, or to the Gu family? Liu Qingyi could not be bothered to reply to Gu Yurin. She simply tossed the phone to Gu Junqing. She was tired of saying anything to this crazy woman. If she kept talking, she might truly lose her temper and end up fighting her. Liu Qingyi, why are you still not speaking? Is it because your backer is afraid? Gu Yurin felt she must have infuriated Liu Qingyi, and she felt quite excited. However, the phone did not transmit Liu Qingyi's voice. Instead, it emitted a man's magnetic and lazy voice. Sister Yurin. The steady, deep voice was like a ripple in the twilight. It caused waves to spread through Gu Yurin's heart, making her mind flutter. At first, Gu Yurin did not recognize who this person was. She simply felt the man's voice was extremely pleasant. It had a gentlemanly quality, mellow like aged wine, and endlessly lingering. The way he spoke was unhurried, yet it seemed to possess a magical charm capable of making any woman's heart flutter. Is Liu Qingyi planning to use a man to seduce me? But why is this voice a bit familiar? Gu Yurin subconsciously thought to herself. Then, she quickly ran through her mind, trying to find the reason she felt so familiar. Suddenly, Gu Yurin's expression stirred, and her face went rigid. That face suddenly appeared before her, bright enough to illuminate the great rivers, with an imposing aura like the high sun that pressed down until the entire younger generation fell silent. Cousin Junqing, Gu Yurin said, unable to believe it. She could not believe she heard Gu Junqing's voice on Liu Qingyi's phone. It was completely unbelievable. She belonged to a branch of the Gu family, but she had an extremely close relationship with the main branch. It was only by virtue of this status that she managed to secure the position of controlling Anran Entertainment. Yet, she had actually heard the voice of Gu Junqing, the young master of the family, on Liu Qingyi's phone. Gu Yurin even doubted if she was dreaming. It is me, Gu Junqing said slowly. Chapter 1036. It is me, Gu Junqing said slowly. Although it was just 2 short words, they sent stormy waves crashing through Gu Yurin's mind. The Gu family of the past, while massive, was only the head of the 4 great families in Luodu. Moving beyond the reach of Luodu was incredibly difficult. Every region had its own local snakes that were hard to suppress. But today, the Gu family's power has expanded to a scale unimaginable to ordinary people. It had long since spread to countless provinces and cities across the Xia nation, and even the world, involving industries too numerous to count. In this year alone, the number of publicly disclosed investments reached hundreds. They averaged 1 to 3 companies a day, effectively penetrating the daily lives of every person in the nation. This terrifying expansion of power grew like a balloon, reaching a truly staggering level. If someone said this growth occurred over just a few short years, it would be difficult to believe, even preposterous. Nobody knew that the Gu Junqing, who created the current prosperity of the Gu family, was now a faith and a high and mighty god worth dying for in the eyes of the family. Gu Yurin felt the same. She revered Gu Junqing with infinite devotion, seeing him as flawless and without a single imperfection. She longed for him deep down, yet felt timid, afraid to get close. She did not know what qualifications she had to even speak to him. She had resorted to such unscrupulous means to expand the family's territory, all for the sake of one day standing beside him and fighting together. Setting aside those psychological factors, the opportunities she had to contact Gu Junqing were few and far between. Although she belonged to a relatively important branch of the Gu family, the chances to see his face were rare. She could only see him attend when the entire family held a grand meeting, with all the powerful figures gathered. The number of times she had actually spoken to him could be counted on one hand. Yet, she still firmly remembered the sound of his voice, So, the moment she heard him, she had her suspicions. Because of her extreme surprise and disbelief that Gu Junqing's voice would appear on Liu Qingyi's phone, she had asked that question. Now that she had received a definitive confirmation from Gu Junqing, surprise and bewilderment flooded the woman, who had just been infuriating Liu Qingyi. Soon after, a sudden burst of joy and excitement erupted. It felt as if she were chasing an unattainable dream, only to suddenly succeed. Although she worked in the entertainment industry, she had always scoffed at fan culture. Of course, she would not reject this culture, otherwise, how could she make money? But now, she finally understood the excitement of a fan meeting their idol. Even though she held great power, and was famous in the upper echelons of the entertainment world, this excitement felt as if a long-held wish had finally been fulfilled. Cousin, how could you be with Liu Qingyi? Gu Yuren struggled to suppress the excitement in her heart, stuttering as she spoke. Gu Junqing heard this question, and looked toward Liu Qingyi. Liu Qingyi just snorted coldly, turning her beautiful face away, as if she did not want to bother with Gu Junqing. Chapter 1037. Cousin, how could you be with Liu Qingyi? Gu Yuren asked, stuttering as she struggled to suppress her inner excitement and exhilaration. This was only the second time she had lost her composure, with the first being when she met Gu Junqing at the Gu family assembly. Although she was his cousin by seniority, status was a different matter entirely. Even elders from the branch families were respectful before Gu Junqing, let alone her. This did not stop her from idolizing her cousin. Upon hearing the question, Gu Junqing glanced at Liu Qingyi. She snorted coldly and turned her beautiful face away, revealing her long and elegant neck in a clear display of ignoring him. However, the way her ears twitched revealed that she was clearly listening to his answer. Gu Junqing chuckled at the sight. Liu Qingyi was likely provoked into losing her composure for the first time. If Gu Yuren were not one of Gu Junqing's people, she would not be nearly this angry. At worst, she would simply oppose Gu Yuren, as she did not believe she would be blacklisted given her status in the entertainment industry and her popularity with the public. With the collective power of her sisters, it would not be difficult to topple an entertainment company CEO. Moreover, while the Gu family was massive, they might not necessarily stick their necks out for Gu Yuren. However, because Gu Yuren was Gu Junqing's subordinate, Liu Qingyi had no outlet for her frustration. Regardless of her personal feelings, Gu Junqing was currently considered half of her own. If she insisted on falling out with Gu Yuren and taking revenge, Gu Junqing would certainly lose face. She had no choice but to suppress her temper. She simply wanted to see how Gu Junqing would handle the matter, and whether his cousin or she, the sister-in-law, was more important. This would demonstrate whether her second sister, Ji Hanyan, held more weight than his own family. If Gu Junqing chose to shield Gu Yuren this time, it would mean his clansmen were more important to him. In that case, she would resolutely oppose the relationship between her second sister and Gu Junqing. From Gu Yuren's arrogant and condescending attitude, she felt she already understood the nature of Gu Junqing's family. If her second sister married into that family in the future and was mistreated, what would she do? Gu Junqing only needed a moment of thought to guess most of what was going through Liu Qingyi's mind. He felt a sense of helplessness mixed with amusement. Because she is my girlfriend. Gu Junqing laughed softly. You. Upon hearing this, Liu Qingyi instantly whipped her head back, her eyes burning with fiery rage. Their relationship was merely temporary, and by logic, she was not his official girlfriend, but rather his sister-in-law. Her second sister was the legitimate girlfriend. Yet Gu Junqing was introducing her to his family as his girlfriend. He had not even introduced her second sister to his family yet. If her second sister found out that she had somehow become the official girlfriend first, how could she ever face her again? He was sowing discord. What a vicious jerk. Liu Qingyi glared at Gu Junqing, looking as though she were itching to bite him. Girlfriend. I thought Liu Qingyi was looking for a boyfriend. Wait, so that was you, cousin Junqing. I thought you looked familiar, and I even considered investigating your identity, to threaten Liu Qingyi. Gu Yuren suppressed the excitement in her heart, and said with a sudden realization. Ha, truly worthy of the name Gu. It is just as they say, those who are not of the same family do not share the same door. Liu Qingyi sneered from the side. Chapter 1038. Gu Yuren revered Gu Junqing deeply, viewing him as her life's guiding faith. However, she had not reached the level where she could identify him merely from a blurred side profile. Even as his fanatical admirer, she had failed to recognize him. This explained why, despite the intense online debate over Liu Qingyi's boyfriend, no one could uncover his true identity. Liu Qingyi harbored resentment because Gu Junqing had snatched her second sister away and repeatedly infuriated her. She desperately wanted him to be condemned by millions of netizens, but she was soft-hearted at the core. Fearing her second sister might blame her for going too far, she avoided extreme actions and kept his identity well hidden. After all, her primary goal was not to ruin him. Girlfriend. I thought she was looking for a boyfriend. So that was you, cousin Junqing. No wonder he seemed familiar. I even thought about investigating his identity to threaten her. Gu Yuren's eyes widened with sudden realization as she spoke bluntly, hiding none of her previous intentions. Even if admitting these thoughts might earn her punishment, she would never hide anything from him. Now that you know, show her some respect. She is your young mistress after all. Gu Junqing teased Liu Qingyi with a glance. Young mistress, that seems a bit much, Gu Yuren muttered to herself. She had heard of his romantic history. For instance, So An Ran, the star her company primarily promoted, was one of his women and therefore another young mistress of hers. However, she did not care about such things. To her, his aura was blindingly dazzling. Like the morning sun, his philandering only added to his extraordinary charm. After all, who wouldn't like such an outstanding man? In her view, all these so-called young mistresses were merely climbing the social ladder by being with her young master. Even if each one was more beautiful and talented than the last, this remained true. She felt they were unworthy of him, and they would not even be with him if he did not fancy them. Of course, compared to ordinary women, these elite individuals were barely capable of matching him, and had the qualifications to carry the Gu family's next generation. Understood, young Mistress Liu. I apologize for my previous offense. I did not know your identity. I hope you do not mind. Although reluctant, Gu Yuren spoke with genuine intent. Since Liu Qingyi was his woman, things became much easier to handle. Even if Liu Qingyi would not use her influence to help expand her voice and power in the entertainment industry, she would at least stop blocking her path. Gu Junqing, do not go too far. Liu Qingyi squinted her eyes and whispered, "What, young Mistress Liu? Stop it." Liu Qingyi pouted and snorted with disdain. Gu Junqing remained unfazed by her retort. However, Gu Yuren on the other end of the phone was about to explode. "I call you young Mistress Liu, and you are actually full of yourself. I do not think you are worthy of being a young mistress at all. Being a concubine to the young master, and bearing the Gu family's heirs, would be the greatest glory of your life." Gu Yuren spat out, her voice chillingly cold. If not for the distance of the phone, she would have rushed to Liu Qingyi's residence, stripped her bare, and dragged her onto Gu Junqing's bed herself. Chapter 1039. I call you young Mistress Liu, and you are really full of yourself. I don't think you are worthy of being a young mistress, as being a concubine to the young master, and bearing the Gu family's heirs would be the glory of your life. Gu Yuren's words made Liu Qingyi's expression increasingly ugly. Although some of Gu Junqing's behavior made her feel suffocated, Gu Yuren's effect on her was completely different. In her confrontations with Gu Junqing, she felt he had a sense of propriety. He would not speak or act without considering the situation. Although she did not want to admit it, her relationship with Gu Junqing had not turned into enmity through their arguments. Instead, they had grown closer through their repeated clashes. It was like a frog being boiled in warm water, as their relationship had reached this point without her realizing it. She was even surprised that she no longer felt disgust or physiological discomfort when they had physical contact. This was incredible for Liu Qingyi, who had long suffered from androphobia. Perhaps only such a subtle process could have allowed someone to forcibly enter her life before she had time to change. But Gu Yuren was different. She targeted Liu Qingyi without any reservations. Every time, she could accurately hit Liu Qingyi's sore spots. It was even more precise than Gu Junqing hitting a heroine's sensitive spots. "You say I'm unworthy. Do you think I care? Also, if I really become the Gu family's daughter-in-law, the first thing I'll do is fire you?" Liu Qingyi's eyebrows stood up, her phoenix eyes widened, and her pretty face flushed with anger. She was clearly furious and spoke without restraint. "Tisk tisk, you're starting to give orders before you've even become the young mistress. Do you really think you're the young mistress just because I called you that? Besides that face and voice, what else do you have? If it weren't for the young master's fancying you, do you really think you'd be qualified to enter the Gu family gate with your status?" Gu Yuren said disdainfully. She sneered when she heard Liu Qingyi act so disdainfully toward the position of young mistress. She could not understand why Liu Qingyi would treat their Gu family with such disdain, especially when it concerned the glory and faith of their family. In her view, if Gu Junqing showed them pity and gave them a chance to serve him in bed, they should be grateful, strip off their clothes, wash themselves clean, and lie obediently on the bed waiting for his favor. "Hey!" Liu Qingyi laughed in extreme anger. She was about to say something when Ye Peng, who was standing to the side, saw his goddess being insulted. Although he secretly hoped they would fight, he could not help but interject. "How can you say that? Our goddess Liu is loved and chased by so many people, and our goddess is just as excellent," Ye Peng said, filled with righteous indignation. Gu Junqing twitched the corner of his mouth on the side. He did not know why, but he felt the scene was a bit awkward. Having seen too many scenes of protagonists standing up for heroines, Gu Junqing felt nothing but speechlessness. His interest was completely gone. Enough. Gu Junqing's eyes turned cold in an instant, and his gaze was as indifferent as water. He spoke coldly. A single word instantly calmed the three arguing people. "Cousin Yuren, I have already formulated the cooperation plan with Liu Qingyi. You will execute it later, and don't worry about gains or losses." "Yes." Gu Yuren felt a chill in her heart and spoke hurriedly. Although she was separated by a phone call, she knew Gu Junqing's patience had reached its limit. "Third sister, you shouldn't have any objections now, right?" Gu Junqing turned his gaze to Liu Qingyi, his eyes seemingly stripped of their usual gentleness. His overbearing and unquestionable demeanor caused Liu Qingyi to stare at him silently for a while before nodding. "As for you, you can leave now. I will have someone else take over your affairs, so stop bothering third sister." Gu Junqing looked at Ye Peng again, a threat flashing in his eyes. He did not want Ye Peng to have any contact with Liu Qingyi. After all, if Liu Qingyi personally coached Ye Peng, a story might inevitably develop between them. Fine. Although Ye Peng really wanted to refuse, after all, his main goal was to get close to Liu Qingyi. Gu Junqing's cold demeanor forced him to accept for the time being. He did not want to provoke Gu Junqing at this moment. "Isn't that over now?" Three women made a play. They really had to bicker with each other a bit more. After getting affirmative answers from all three, Gu Junqing's expression relaxed, and he said with a smile. Chapter 1040. Although Gu Junqing returned to his usual expression, everyone present remained silent. The atmosphere was incredibly calm. Gu Junqing had just projected an overwhelming aura of nobility and majesty. His already handsome appearance seemed divine, compelling everyone to obey him instinctively. Even after several minutes, no one could forget his expression. Ye Peng, relying on his protagonist's instinct for danger, felt this the most. His heart was filled with chilling fear. Cold sweat soaked through his shirt. He decided then and there that he would never provoke this terrifying man again. He needed foolproof preparations and absolute certainty of victory before attempting anything. Liu Qingyi looked at Gu Junqing with cold, quiet eyes. At first, she had thought he was just an annoying playboy, who her second sister only liked because he was handsome and articulate. She thought she understood him well, but now she realized she had only seen the surface. She had a feeling that his true nature had been hidden from her all along. This only fueled her curiosity. At the same time, she finally understood why her second sister had fallen for him. Perhaps only a man like Gu Junqing could be worthy of her. Under Gu Junqing's direction, Liu Qingyi quickly reached a peace agreement with Anran Entertainment. She and Gu Yuran finalized the terms of their contract. Her studio and Anran Entertainment were now merely partners, not subordinates. This was a far cry from Gu Yuran's original acquisition plan. This was what Gu Junqing demanded, and the terms heavily favored Liu Qingyi. She maintained full autonomy. She retained the right to manage and train her artists as she saw fit. Anran Entertainment could not interfere, meaning no forced variety show appearances or fake dating scandals. In reality, signing Liu Qingyi meant Anran Entertainment could not lose money. Her reputation and fame were simply too massive. Furthermore, she had never taken on advertisements or endorsed products. Simply put, she never cheapened herself, and her fan trust was incredibly high. Beyond that, investors would flock to anyone associated with her. Her commercial and economic value was immeasurable. Gu Yuran understood this, which was why she had gone to such lengths to sign her. Liu Qingyi was an untapped treasure, capable of bringing unimaginable wealth and success. Even if Gu Yuran felt the contract contained humiliating terms, the gains for Anran Entertainment would still be significant. At the very least, using Liu Qingyi's studio as a talent incubation base was a solid alternative. Mentoring a starlet under the title of a diva could generate massive traffic. Besides, Liu Qingyi's subordinates included many talented individuals. As for Liu Qingyi's motivation, it was simple. It was better to lean on a sturdy tree for shade. Gu Junqing's terms were so favorable that hesitating would have been a disservice to her money and her staff. Matters were easier to manage in the past, but now that she was moving behind the scenes, she needed to find a secure future for her team. Chapter 1041. The office was once again left with only Liu Qingyi and Gu Junqing. After learning that Liu Qingyi had finished signing the contract with Gu Yuran, Ye Peng left in a hurry, with an ugly expression. As for arrangements for Ye Peng, although Gu Junqing promised to assign him an agent, she still wanted to mentor him personally. She truly appreciated Ye Peng's talent, and she did not want to see such a gifted individual buried. With all conflicts between her and Anran Entertainment resolved, Liu Qingyi finally breathed a sigh of relief. She had basically finalized everything for her retirement, needing only a final farewell concert to gracefully exit the music scene. Why does it feel like I am making final arrangements for my own departure? Liu Qingyi thought, shaking her head with a wry smile. However, she truly wanted the Xiao Nation to still have its own diva-level singers after her retirement. This was especially important given the current music scene, which was flooded with foreign styles. It was an absolute farce that a song performed entirely in a foreign language once won the Xiao Nation's Golden Melody Award. It was only after Liu Qingyi's debut that this trend began to be curbed. She worried that after she retired, the music scene in the Xiao Nation would revert to an era dominated by foreign music. Hey, I have to thank you for this, Liu Qingyi said, kicking Gu Junqing with her soft foot while sitting beside him. Her expression was somewhat awkward. Although she did not fear Anran Entertainment, she did not want any accidents to happen just as she was about to leave the music industry. If she got into another conflict with them now, both her concert and her retirement plans would inevitably be affected. It was best to avoid unnecessary trouble now to prevent her plans from being disrupted. Therefore, having Gu Junqing step in to resolve the matter was the best choice. Then call me brother-in-law a few more times, Gu Junqing said, stroking his chin with a smile. Get lost. If you had not mentioned it, I would have almost forgotten how you dared to treat me earlier. If you do not come up with a fair solution, I will go tell my second sister that you bullied me. I have a witness this time, she snapped. The moment Liu Qingyi recalled being pinned down by Gu Junqing, unable to move, and humiliatingly begging him to stop, her good mood vanished. Just thinking about her shameful, pleading state made her feel waves of annoyance. How could someone like her be pinned down by a man in such a humiliating way? Even if anyone was to be on top, it should be her pinning Gu Junqing down. She even suspected that if they had not been interrupted, Gu Junqing would have certainly done something more. Liu Qingyi could not help but stretch out her long leg and kick Gu Junqing twice in resentment. Tisk, Gu Junqing clicked his tongue, as if recalling the pleasure of pinning her down and forcing her to call him brother-in-law. It was no easy feat to get the arrogant and prideful Liu Qingyi to behave this way. In the past, no matter what happened, Liu Qingyi would never admit defeat. So, do you want to continue? He asked. Gu Junqing blinked his eyes, glancing downwards as a flicker of heat gradually flashed in his gaze. Liu Qingyi's jade-like feet were wrapped in black silk as thin as a cicada's wing, and the hazy, perfect, and flawless small feet would make anyone with such a preference want to taste them right away. Chapter 1042. Gu Junqing's burning gaze remained fixed on her feet, and even though she was angry, Liu Qingyi could not help but roll her eyes at him. She no longer wanted to guess what he was planning to do. Could you please stop being so obvious about your unique habits? Liu Qingyi offered a friendly smile, feigning concern for his reputation. Is it that obvious? Gu Junqing raised an eyebrow, rubbing his chin with an enigmatic smile. Ha, it looks like you are about to start drooling. Liu Qingyi replied with disdain. Fine, I will stop arguing with you now. Although you did terrible things to me, you helped me earlier, so I will forgive you for the moment. Do not even think about continuing what you were doing before. She seemed tired of the bickering, and leaned back against the soft sofa. What is wrong, third sister? If you are unhappy, your brother-in-law can help you resolve it, whether it is a mental or physical issue. Gu Junqing raised his eyebrows in surprise and asked curiously. A moment ago she had the energy to banter with him, but now she had shifted into a somber mood. This made him wonder what she was thinking. Could you stop switching your forms of address? One moment you call me third sister, and the next you call yourself my brother-in-law. Liu Qingyi frowned, still uncomfortable with his insistence on separate social tiers. That will not be possible for now. Of course, once you change your tune and call me husband, you will not have to worry about changing the address anymore. Gu Junqing laughed. Gu Junqing, why do you keep targeting me? It feels like we have been stuck in a cycle of deception and confrontation ever since I returned, and you were even lying to me the very first time we met. Liu Qingyi ignored his provocation, her expression turning deadly serious. Her jewel-like eyes glistened with moisture as she bit her red lips, staring at him. She had been watching his reaction closely when Gu Yurin mentioned the psychologist. But Gu Junqing had remained far too calm, without even a flicker of emotion on his face. It was obvious he had known about her androphobia all along. The only explanation was that her second sister had told him. This also explained why her second sister had insisted on him following her. The goal was simple, to cure her androphobia. Her second sister had never told her though. She did not want to be kept in the dark anymore, and the feeling of being deceived by those closest to her was devastating. Gu Junqing was slightly taken aback by her determination to force a confrontation. He had never expected the once haughty Liu Qingyi to show such a vulnerable side. He remained silent for a moment. Liu Qingyi did not wait for him, continuing on her own. Since you will not tell me why you targeted me, let me guess. It was my second sister, was it not? That is actually not true. Gu Junqing muttered to himself. He realized why she was so emotional, as it had to be related to the sister she respected and loved. She told you about my androphobia, and you both decided to use this method to cure me? Fighting fire with fire, perhaps? She could not help but smile as she spoke. Having a man like Gu Junqing act like an enemy to confront a woman who despised men was certainly a form of fighting fire with fire. Seeing that she had misunderstood the situation, Gu Junqing decided to remain silent, staring at her calmly. He let his usual bantering gaze fade, replacing it with a calm, pitying look, as if he had finally been understood. Although the idea was entirely his own, he knew it was best to distance himself from it now. Chapter 1043. Liu Qingyi saw Gu Junqing remain silent, assuming she had hit the mark. She lowered her head and lowered her gaze, her eyes, usually bright as the morning stars, seeming to lose their brilliant luster. Her radiant face, capable of enchanting all living beings, was rarely touched by a hint of sorrow. Her mood turned incredibly complex, her breathing heavy, and her thoughts wandered back into the memories of the past. Do you want to know why I hate men so much? Liu Qingyi's tone held a trace of reminiscence, yet her face wore an expression of extreme disgust, as if she had recalled something she loathed deeply. There are many things in life that do not go as planned. Seeing that Liu Qingyi seemed willing to open up to him, Gu Junqing naturally nodded and promised to listen with a serious expression. To be honest, he was very curious about how she had developed such an aversion to men. Generally, women who fear or hate men have often suffered physical trauma or insults, such as being bullied by some lecherous man in their childhood. There are also psychological factors, such as a father abandoning her and her mother or similar situations, which lead to her hatred of men. Of course, the radical feminists do not fall into this category. Some people truly have tragic pasts that lead to an aversion to the opposite sex. However, certain women pretend to hate men purely to push a narrative, but if they met an exceptionally high-quality man, they would likely be the first to chase after him. Liu Qingyi, however, did not fit into these categories. Although in his eyes her strength was average, and he could easily subdue or control her, that was only because of his foundation establishment realm strength. In reality, Liu Qingyi could face 4 or 5 strong men alone, and defeat them all without changing her expression. Without this strength, given her breathtaking beauty, how could she have protected herself in the entertainment industry, a place rife with power, greed, and deception? Furthermore, her recent kiss with Gu Junqing had been her first. As for a father figure, that was even more ridiculous. The 7 sisters had depended on each other for survival in the orphanage since they were young. Now that they were grown, they had no strong desire to find their biological relatives, or rather, they had none at all. To them, there was no one in this world more important than the 7 sisters. Thus, Liu Qingyi, the third of the 7 sisters, was naturally not harmed by her family, since it was not physical violation, nor the influence of family, and certainly not the radical internet rhetoric. Then there was only one possibility left, which was psychological. Combining this with Liu Qingyi's expression just now, Gu Junqing guessed that perhaps certain past images or scenes had left a significant psychological impact on her. I am all ears, Gu Junqing said with a serious and attentive expression. Although he felt he had guessed most of the situation, he believed it was necessary to understand Liu Qingyi completely. This was a perfect opportunity to get to know her and walk into her heart, and he would not be foolish enough to turn it down. Otherwise, how would that differ from unbuckling a woman's belt only to choose to jump rope instead? This must have been over 10 years ago, back when I had just entered the entertainment industry and began to step into the public eye. Liu Qingyi leaned back against the soft sofa, a trance-like gaze appearing in her eyes. Chapter 1044. 10 years ago, there was a company in the entertainment industry with significant status called Dark Castle. It did not just dabble in entertainment, but had influence in business and politics as well, effectively dominating the industry, not unlike your Anran Entertainment. On the surface, they were just investors, but secretly, they maintained close ties with prominent figures in politics, business, and culture. They began to lure their own female artists, forcing them to accompany high-ranking officials to provide insurance for their illegal activities. Although Liu Qingyi's voice remained calm, the chilling coldness in her eyes betrayed just how much she loathed these behaviors. Gu Junqing muttered inwardly at this point. To be honest, this kind of collusion between officials and businessmen was hardly surprising. Where there is power and capital, there is collusion, and where there is interest, there is filth, which is an unspoken rule. He did not care about such things, and given his status, he never needed to resort to them. That did not mean, however, that subordinates or factions would not collude with others for profit and engage in activities others found repulsive. Given the current scale of the Gu family, it was simply impossible to completely eradicate such situations. Take Anran Entertainment, for instance. Given Gu Yuren's personality, if there were a shortcut to faster success, she might not hesitate to engage in the things Liu Qingyi described for profit. Many of the female artists Liu Qingyi mentioned who accompanied high-ranking officials actually wanted to latch onto a powerful backer to protect their careers. Some of them were even desperate to encounter such opportunities. Yet, it could not be denied that a portion of them with more innocent intentions were coerced by the company. This phenomenon was not novel in the entertainment industry, as celebrities without fame or traffic were nothing in front of the companies they signed with. If they did not obey the company's arrangements, they would face massive, unaffordable breach of contract penalties. Some female artists really had no voice when they encountered these things. But people choose their own paths. Gu Junqing truly did not care whether these choices were right or wrong. As long as these things did not damage his majestic image in the hearts of the heroines, he would not concern himself with whether such filth occurred under his command. He was not the type to hate evil with a passion or be unable to stand any injustice. Do you think my sense of justice is overflowing, that I saw injustice and wanted to eradicate evil, only to fall ill from anger when I failed to stop these bullies? Seeing Gu Junqing looking solemn, but seemingly indifferent, Liu Qingyi spoke with a hint of annoyance. How could that be? On the contrary, I admire your sense of justice, third sister, but you seem a bit too emotional, Gu Junqing replied, blinking and offering a tactful persuasion. These things are just the inherent flaws of humanity. People will discard their conscience for fame and fortune, and that does not seem like enough to make someone harbor hatred for the entire male population. Liu Qingyi saw Gu Junqing's dismissive attitude and tone, which made it sound as if she were meddling in others' business. It made her grit her teeth in frustration. If she had not yet reached the climax of the story, she would have wanted to bite this bastard a few times. Humph, if it were only that, it would be fine. It would just be a pimping intermediary. While I don't like it, I wouldn't have made myself like this. Also, don't interrupt. Listen to me. Liu Qingyi threw a look at Gu Junqing that was a mixture of anger and flirtation. Fine, fine, fine. Gu Junqing shrugged. Let me ask you a question first. What do you think of me? I want to hear your evaluation. Liu Qingyi asked abruptly. Her eyes, cool and bright like a cold pool, stared at Gu Junqing, expressing an urgent desire to listen. Clearly, she also wanted to know how she was rated in Gu Junqing's heart. Although there were plenty of ratings about her online, she had grown tired of them. But because she could look forward to Gu Junqing's evaluation this much, it was obvious that he had become a unique existence to her. An evaluation? Gu Junqing was slightly stunned, then pondered for a moment before saying cautiously, well, elegant, dignified, graceful, generous, kind, quiet, refined, pure. Gu Junqing rattled off a string of compliments. Liu Qingyi felt a bit embarrassed listening to them. She felt that these compliments did not exactly fit, or rather, they were completely irrelevant to her. So this is my image in his heart. He is such a flatterer. Could this guy be secretly in love with me, while trying to take advantage of me? Liu Qingyi muttered inwardly. Seeing Gu Junqing continue to spew compliments, she wanted to stop him out of embarrassment. But just as she opened her mouth to stop him from flattering her, Gu Junqing smacked his lips and paused as if still wanting more. He then continued with a grave expression. Besides these, third sister, you have many other advantages. The veins on Liu Qingyi's smooth forehead visibly pulsed. She should not have hoped for pearls of wisdom from a dog's mouth. This was clearly implying she was useless aside from her beauty and talent. What is wrong, third sister? Did I miss something? The key was that Gu Junqing blinked and asked with an innocent face. Liu Qingyi was so angry that the gloomy mood she carried in her heart was swept away, replaced by surging anger. Liu Qingyi took a deep breath, comforting herself that at least Gu Junqing thought she was good-looking. Only then did she manage to suppress the urge to fight Gu Junqing to the death. She continued to tell the story of her past. When I first debuted, my face caused a massive storm in the circle. I don't know how many entertainment companies scrambled to sign me, and that dark castle was one of them. As she spoke, Liu Qingyi shot a disdainful glance at Gu Junqing, as if to say the others had better taste than he did. Chapter 1045. Third sister, have you turned traitor and defected to the enemy? Gu Junqing heard Liu Qingyi mention she had once joined this dark castle. He rubbed his chin and chuckled, finding the thought amusing. He was not worried that anything bad would happen to her by joining. Before meeting the male protagonist, heroines almost always navigated life smoothly, thanks to their own luck and exceptional character. He was certain Liu Qingyi must have had her own agenda for joining. Are you going to listen or not? Liu Qingyi closed her eyes and took a deep breath, her chest rising and falling sharply as Gu Junqing's constant interruptions frustrated her. She was not as patient as her second sister, Ji Hanyan, whose work as an assassin required immense patience. I'm listening. Gu Junqing cleared his throat, sensing her genuine irritation, and promised to remain silent. If you interrupt me again, I am stopping. Liu Qingyi huffed. You just need to know that this was an incredibly massive black organization. They even walled off a desolate suburb to build a criminal hideout for guests and celebrities to play. It had deep roots, involving countless big names who seemed respectable to the average person. Everyone who went there praised it as an unforgettable experience. It became an unspoken secret for the wealthy and powerful. Liu Qingyi's beautiful face twisted into a sneer. Since this matter was resolved but never reached the public eye, it seems to have been the result of negotiation between all parties. Gu Junqing listened quietly, thoughtful. This was a criminal empire built on the bodies of thousands of women, with the average age of the girls under 16, and the youngest not even 12. If those events were exposed, how many so-called powerful figures would fall from grace? Do you think these powerful figures would ever let that truth see the light of day? Liu Qingyi's expression grew indifferent, her eyes revealing a chilling, soul-piercing coldness. Despite her emotionless tone, Gu Junqing could hear the grief, pain, and struggle within her heart. Matters like this operated on internal unwritten rules where evidence meant nothing, and everything was handled internally. Unless the situation grew too large to cover up, the public would never know. Listening to her, Gu Junqing narrowed his eyes at her beautiful face. A hypothesis formed in his mind. Was this perhaps the main plotline of the sisters' story? While all seven were exceptional, perfect, and stunning daughters of heaven in their respective fields, capturing everyone would clearly require significant power. Without Gu Junqing's involvement, Dao Tianyan's Shura society, a semi-underworld, outsider organization with no conflicting interests, would have been an excellent choice. What happened next? Gu Junqing, sensing her suppressed emotions and recognizing this as a prime opportunity to win her over, asked with genuine sincerity. If we hadn't sensed something was wrong, and had my second sister insert me into the organization to investigate, that dark organization might still exist today. Even after we dealt with the ringleaders, those powerful figures remained hidden, weaving their foul web of interests for the so-called upper class. One day, I will catch them all. Her voice was icy. She had been a key figure in that affair, being the first to discover the organization's activities, and the first to sneak inside and witness those poor girls. That was why she hated the children of the elite so much, and why, through internal torment, she had developed an aversion to men. That was also why she initially targeted Gu Junqing, not wanting him to be with her second sister. Otherwise, no matter how close she felt to her sister, she wouldn't have tried to stop her from finding happiness. She had simply feared that Gu Junqing was a beast in human clothing, impeccable on the surface, but secretly doing unspeakable things. After spending time with him and investigating him behind the scenes, she finally began to trust his character. That was why she opened up to him today. Chapter 1046. Though Liu Qingyi summarized her past so casually, Gu Junqing could sense how dangerous her situation had been at the time. 10 years ago, Liu Qingyi would have been a budding girl of only 17 or 18. Being able to specifically cater to the elites and guests of the country, while providing a playground for these perverts, showed that this organization had immense power. Even with Liu Qingyi's natural intelligence and astonishing martial prowess, infiltrating such a massive organization, to uncover such hidden intelligence was clearly no easy feat. Furthermore, the seven sisters certainly did not have the immense achievements they possessed today back then. Gu Junqing surmised that Liu Qingyi must have witnessed too many innocent girls being humiliated by others, coupled with the fact that the participating political elites, business tycoons, and top-tier celebrities faced no sanctions. Her heart must have been filled with sorrow and resentment. A girl of only 17 or 18, suddenly encountering such darkness in the world, would have had her worldview and mentality shattered. The ensuing years spent in the eye of the entertainment industry's storm, where dark secrets and unspoken rules were omnipresent, gradually forged the strange, man-hating disposition she possesses today. He could completely understand the knot in Liu Qingyi's heart. Thinking of this, Gu Junqing sighed helplessly. This meant that untying Liu Qingyi's heart knot would be no simple task. After all, trying to investigate events from 10 years ago now meant that clues, information, and even evidence involving the people involved had likely been largely scrubbed clean. Yet, he had to do it. The person who tied the bell must untie it. Only by resolving Liu Qingyi's inner knot could he hope to raise her favorability, which had remained almost completely stagnant. Gu Junqing estimated that Liu Qingyi's favorability rating for any man was likely negative. Even for the male lead, her younger brother Dao Tianyan, it was the same. This could be seen from how unmoved she was upon hearing that Dao Tianyan was still alive. Knowing that when the other sisters heard their childhood playmate Dao Tianyan was alive, they had been incredibly happy. After all, he was their childhood playmate, and their acknowledged eighth brother. Only Liu Qingyi, the third of the 7 sisters, seemed completely unaffected. Even the male lead's luck aura, which could cause those around him to lose their intelligence, had no effect on Liu Qingyi. The difficulty of trying to conquer Liu Qingyi through normal means was obvious. Just like now, although his relationship with Liu Qingyi had not reached the level of deep intimacy or physical union, their interactions and banter were already completely normal. He did not trigger her physiological or psychological disgust. Yet even so, her favorability toward him remained incredibly difficult to raise, as if stuck in a bottleneck. There was always a thin membrane that remained unbroken. This was where Liu Qingyi's heart not lay. Perhaps only by thoroughly resolving this matter and cleaning out everyone behind the scenes would Gu Junqing have the chance to fully break through that membrane. Of course, this also included the literal meaning of that membrane. Third sister, this has nothing to do with gender. It is about human nature and desire. Gu Junqing knew it might not do much, but he wanted to try to persuade and comfort her. Desire comes into this world dripping with blood and filth from head to toe. Countless religions, laws, systems, and countries have tried to erase human desire or lock it in a cage. But desire always conquers all, and can even turn faith and law into tools for the extension of its own self. The suffering those girls endured is not your fault. You carry too much on your shoulders. Gu Junqing sighed inwardly. Liu Qingyi's nature appeared cold, but was actually passionate. She seemed rational, yet she was extremely emotional. Upon hearing this, Liu Qingyi remained indifferent, her pretty face as cold as ice, clear and chilly like the moon in the 9th heaven. The corners of her lips only curled up slightly. If it were that simple, she would never have let herself fall into such a situation. She had lost count of how many times she had seen a psychologist. However, she had not let herself succumb to self-pity. She simply felt exceptionally disappointed in human nature. Every time she saw a man, she would subconsciously recall the hellish scenes built upon those young girls back then. You say everyone has desire, then what about your desire? Liu Qingyi calmed herself, then suddenly looked at Gu Junqing with a slightly provocative gaze. She had revealed her scars to Gu Junqing not because she wanted his sympathy, but because she wanted to understand this man better. Chapter 1047. My desires? Gu Junqing couldn't help but laugh. He had been considering whether to comfort Liu Qingyi, but she didn't need it at all, and instead, she was trying to get something out of him. Reaching the status of an entertainment diva meant Liu Qingyi was certainly not weak-willed. If it could be solved by just a few words, it wouldn't have been left to Gu Junqing to handle. The other 6 sisters held a position in Liu Qingyi's heart that was far higher than Gu Junqing's. In particular, the second sister, Ji Hanyan, occupied an extremely special place in her heart. Then, third sister, looking at me like this, what do you think my desires are? Gu Junqing smiled slightly, speaking with a touch of teasing. Liu Qingyi tilted her exquisite face, her lively eyes seeming to gather all the spirit of heaven and earth. Her figure was curvaceous, like a beautiful little mermaid, and as she crossed her long, slender legs, she revealed a pair of delicate, fair feet with toes curled slightly like perfect jade, enough to make anyone want to hold them in their hands to admire. With such beauty, combined with an ethereal, clean voice that sounded like celestial music, and the talent to command multiple styles effortlessly, it was no wonder she could climb to the top of the music industry in her 20s. She reigned as an undisputed diva. Even Gu Junqing was momentarily stunned after observing Liu Qingyi's beauty up close. He lamented once again that these heroines, blessed with such extraordinary destiny, were as beautiful and perfect as works of art. Liu Qingyi clearly felt Gu Junqing's slightly aggressive gaze as he appraised her, which, combined with his words, made her roll her eyes in silence. Did she even need to say it, when he made his intentions so painfully obvious? She couldn't be bothered to answer his trap of a question, fearing he might try something if she did. Instead, her expression suddenly became solemn, even more serious than during their heart-to-heart just moments ago. Gu Junqing, I told you all this not to make you pity me, but to ask you to help me untie the knot in second sister's heart. Because of my issues, she has always felt guilty and regretful for sending me undercover, and even though I tell her it has nothing to do with her, and I don't blame her, I know she only agrees on the surface, while still holding onto it deep down. That is why I want you to help me. Gu Junqing was amused and couldn't help but complain internally. Second sister Ji Hanyan had asked him to approach Liu Qingyi to cure her androphobia and heal her heart. Now, Liu Qingyi wanted him to untie the knot in the second sister's heart, so she would stop obsessing over the matter. Couldn't these two sisters just have an honest conversation with each other? Their relationship went back much further than his, even if it wasn't as deep or thorough as his. Having grown up together in the orphanage, surely there was nothing they couldn't talk through or resolve. Seeing his expression, Liu Qingyi immediately knew what he was thinking. She said helplessly, my second sister, and I have talked about this countless times, and if it had been useful, I wouldn't have come to you. That's fine, but, you know how it is. Asking for a favor requires some compensation. Gu Junqing winked, speaking with a suggestive tone. 50 million. Liu Qingyi gritted her teeth, wishing she could bite this greedy man to death. but she offered the price without hesitation. Money was not an issue for her. Gu Junqing spread his hands. Third sister, do I look like the kind of person who is short on cash? Then what do you want? Liu Qingyi took a deep breath, an ominous premonition rising in her heart. Cough, you know. Gu Junqing suddenly swept his gaze over Liu Qingyi's breathtaking, curvaceous figure, rubbing his chin as he spoke with a malicious glint. He felt no psychological pressure about taking advantage of the situation. Liu Qingyi's expression remained calm, and she turned to leave. Wait, I'm just joking, we can negotiate. Gu Junqing quickly grabbed her to stop her. You shameless, perverted bastard, don't even think about doing that sort of thing with me. Liu Qingyi shook off his hand, her fair, delicate cheeks flushing with a mix of resentment and anger as she glared at him. That lecherous bastard Gu Junqing, she didn't even have to guess to know he definitely wanted to do that with her. Chapter 1048. You are indeed as despicable and shameless as ever. Anything but that is off the table. Liu Qingyi looked at Gu Junqing as if she had seen right through him. Although she felt angry, this outcome was not entirely unexpected. While her impression of Gu Junqing had improved significantly since the beginning, she still could not bring herself to offer herself to him willingly. I thought you and Hanyan shared a deep sisterly bond. I did not realize it amounted to so little. Gu Junqing let out a sigh, looking deeply regretful. We sisters would even give our lives for each other. How can you say it amounts to so little? Liu Qingyi snorted coldly. Gu Junqing shook his head and continued. You have worked hard to reach the top of the entertainment industry. The higher you stand, the more scrutiny and targeting you face. Whether out of malice or adoration, every action you take is amplified infinitely. If your fans discover your androphobia, you know the sensation it will cause in society. Countless impressionable fans might emulate you. Radical feminists will likely treat you as their idol. You know how much influence you have. Your entertainment rivals won't even need to act before the government bans you. You are comparing me to those people? Liu Qingyi furrowed her brows and glared at Gu Junqing, feeling deeply insulted. She had looked into the escalating feminist movements online. Some women hide behind the banner of gender equality to propagate extreme and rude rhetoric. She held nothing but disdain for such behavior. Her own disdain for men stemmed from past psychological trauma, combined with the fact that those responsible remained at large. It was truly a disappointment in human nature. It was just an analogy. But sometimes, things are not what you want them to be, Gu Junqing said with a smile. I know all that, but what does it have to do with my second sister? Liu Qingyi still looked puzzled. Your sister knows you are proud and intolerant of imperfections. Even though she planned to retire, she still strategized to leave a good reputation behind, as she values her career deeply. She worried that if the world found out about your condition and exploited it, your career would collapse. You don't know how happy she was that you don't find my touch repulsive. Originally, she planned to give herself to me after we married. But to ensure I treat you, she is willing to move that time up. Your sister is willing to give herself to me for your sake. Yet you, the third sister, are unwilling to give yourself to me to resolve your sister's worries. Gu Junqing deliberately provoked her. For this seasoned veteran who had spent over a decade in the entertainment industry, minor schemes were useless. She did not choose to trust others easily. She remained skeptical of every word spoken and every action taken. It was this caution that allowed her to stand unscathed in the entertainment industry for over a decade. Therefore, Gu Junqing could only resort to an open provocation. Even if Liu Qingyi knew that Gu Junqing was only after her body, she had no way to escape. Chapter 1049. Gu Junqing's words caused Liu Qingyi's emotions to fluctuate wildly. So that's how it is. Liu Qingyi's expression was incredibly complex as she muttered to herself. Since she returned, she had felt her second sister had changed, no longer treating her as well as before because she was always revolving around this damn man. This made her feel neglected. Yet her sister had actually agreed to do that sort of thing with this bastard for her sake. This erased all of Liu Qingyi's grievances, plunging her into a state of resentful melancholy. Gu Junqing did not disturb her, knowing she needed to figure these things out on her own. You bastard. You really are a beast in human clothing. I thought you treated my second sister with sincerity at first, but I never expected you to use me to force her, and now you are forcing me too. After clearing her head, Liu Qingyi quickly pulled herself together. She glared at Gu Junqing with eyes that seemed ready to spit fire, her hands clenched into fists as if she were ready to start a physical altercation at the slightest provocation. This scumbag was just like those rich, spoiled playboys who only knew how to use threats. Speak with a clear conscience. Your sister and I are mutually consenting, so there is no forcing involved. Your appearance is just a bit of fun for us, a catalyst for our feelings. Gu Junqing spread his hands in a helpless gesture. You. Fine, whatever. I agree. It is just like being chewed on by a dog, I suppose. Liu Qingyi was even angrier upon hearing this, but she quickly deflated when she recalled that her sister did not look like she was being forced at all. She looked hopeless and slightly tragic. Hey, then I will have to chew on you a few more times when the moment comes. Gu Junqing let out a cold laugh. Liu Qingyi did not even want to deal with this man anymore, falling into a state of self-pity. Enough. I am not forcing you to do anything. Your sister just thinks your androphobia is her fault and worries you will never find a man. Did you see how happy she was when you were able to touch me without feeling nauseated? It is simple to put her heart at ease. Just stop working against me, and act friendly and affectionate in front of others, and she will be able to let it go. Seeing Liu Qingyi's downcast mood, Gu Junqing stopped teasing her and casually explained his plan. That is all it takes. Liu Qingyi asked, looking lost. What else? Besides, what does your androphobia matter? Ultimately, your sister is just worried you will be lonely. Think about it. In the future, when your other 6 sisters are all with me, leaving you alone would not be right, would it? Seeing Liu Qingyi's emotions stabilize, Gu Junqing breathed a sigh of relief. He stroked his chin and intentionally teased her. Just now, when Liu Qingyi was furious, Gu Junqing clearly noticed the favorability rating for him in his system panel becoming blurry. Clearly, she was so angry at his words that her favorability was fluctuating. It seemed that her second sister, Ji Hanyan, was indeed Liu Qingyi's Achilles heel. As long as he could leverage this point, breaking through the bottleneck of Liu Qingyi's favorability was not impossible. Gu Junqing narrowed his eyes, a deep look in his gaze as he stared at her. Pa, keep dreaming. It would be a miracle if my second sister became your girlfriend. You want to pursue my other sisters? You are dreaming. Liu Qingyi scoffed a few times. However, she suddenly recalled what her master had told the 7 of them when fortune-telling in their childhood, and her heart skipped a beat. Her master had said that the 7 of them would marry the same man. Now that Gu Junqing had become Ji Hanyan's boyfriend, he might really be that fated person. At that thought, her desire to fight back dimmed. Chapter 1050. Just consider it a dream then. I only hope that once I fulfill your second sister's wish, you will not go back on your word. Gu Junqing shrugged, appearing completely indifferent. This only left Liu Qingyi feeling suffocated, as if she had punched a cloud. She realized that she was completely helpless against Gu Junqing. When it came to force, she could handle ordinary people just fine. However, after several confrontations with Gu Junqing, she knew his strength was unfathomable. Whether it was money or influence, it was clearly useless against someone with Gu Junqing's top-tier background. Furthermore, this bastard was impervious to both threats and pleas. She had just poured her heart out to him, yet he still mocked her with a grin, and even wanted to take advantage of her. He was truly the biggest bastard of them all. Even with all her experience, Liu Qingyi had never encountered such a detestable man. In the past, those disgusting men, no matter how hideous their appearance or dirty their minds, never showed it on the surface. They were always respectful and deferential toward her. Yet in the eyes of those who did not know him, Gu Junqing appeared to be a refined, handsome, and exceptionally outstanding man. Even her second sister and several of her discerning sisters held him in high regard. Why then was he such a bastard in front of her, always bullying her? She had absolutely no way to deal with him. She was even now dependent on him, hoping he could erase the guilt her second sister felt on her behalf. At this thought, Liu Qingyi could not help but feel her fate was dark and hopeless. A sudden sense of grievance welled up in her heart. Gu Junqing noticed that Liu Qingyi, who had previously been at daggers drawn with him, suddenly softened. Her dreamlike eyes filled with a thin mist, moistening her gaze, while her lips trembled slightly. She struggled to maintain her composure in their confrontation, fighting to keep the glistening tears from falling. Seeing Liu Qingyi in such a pathetic state, even Gu Junqing softened and fell silent for a moment. Even he had not expected that Liu Qingyi, who always defied him, and never surrendered even when pinned beneath him, would now appear ready to weep. If her fans saw her looking like this, they would likely tear the person responsible to shreds. Liu Qingyi blinked her beautiful eyes, her long, thick lashes fluttering as she forcibly suppressed the bitterness in her heart and the tears in her eyes. Proud as she was, she did not want to surrender to Gu Junqing. The two of them stared at each other in silence. However, as he watched her, Gu Junqing began to feel a stirring in his lower abdomen. Liu Qingyi's tearful expression, so different from her usual cold and arrogant demeanor, created a lethal sense of contrast. And contrast is a major source of sexual stimulation for men. Examples include a holy elf welcoming a goblin while wearing a transparent white veil, or a pure and cute childhood sweetheart being compromised by a delinquent. It also includes a strict teacher in a tight-fitting skirt obeying your every command, or a gentle but distant stepmother suddenly seeking to get close to you at night. Furthermore, the ability to bully Liu Qingyi until she cried ignited a fire within Gu Junqing, and the burning intensity in his eyes grew ever stronger. To be continued. Hope you liked today's video. Join the community by subscribing and dropping a like. I'll be back with another update as soon as possible. See you then.